All right, I want to call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Wigan.
Here.
Trustee Soilu. Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Pearson.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Crane. Dr. Smith.
Here.
All right, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Pearson, seconded by Trustee Anderson. Roll call vote.
Trustee Wigan.
Yes.
Trustee Soilu. Trustee Murphy.
Here, or yes.
Trustee Pearson.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Okay, vote carries 4-0. And we have community input on closed session items only. We have one comment, and would you like to read your statement, Trustee Murphy?
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items on the closed session agenda only. Comments on closed session agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person.
All right, our first comment is from David Martinez.
Hello, Madam President, members of the board. My name is David Martinez. I'm a former 7-Eleven committee member and I currently serve on the Costa Mesa Planning Commission, but I'm just here for myself. I just wanted to comment on the property that's on your closed session agenda. And first, want to recognize the need for more housing, more development. I was just at Planning Commission last night and recommended the City Council approve a 1,050 unit apartment development. And I know we need more housing, but this site presents a unique opportunity for open space, for recreation, for nature-based education, for things like that, that I think it would be a really big shame to pass up. I went to College Park and then I went to Mesa Middle and High School, and we never got anything like out in nature. We never did a field trip out to a park or something like that. I remember in 7th grade biology, we just had the outdoor patio for science class, and that was like our experience with plants, and that was it. This could be open space owned by you, leased to someone else, let students know about nature, about the environment. It could be a really great opportunity for you all to do something with this. It makes me think about Mesa Water's MRF, the reliability facility that they just opened. That's now a place where students and anyone else in the community can go and learn about water, the water table, water issues, and that's owned by, Mesa Water, government agency. Be amazing if Newport-Mesa also got an opportunity to own or lease out from or to a different agency, some kind of educational experience like what Mesa Water has. So at 7-Eleven committee, I spoke up for this. Essentially, I wanted this to be open space to be prioritized among the board when you consider what to do with this property, and I hope that you keep that in mind with this negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing that there are no more comments, we are going to move now into closed session. The items are A, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, one case. B, conference with a real property negotiator. C, conference with labor negotiator. D, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, employment. We will return from closed session at 6 p.m. Thank you. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. And opening ceremonies and moment of reflection led by Ashley Anderson.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to adoption of minutes from 5/2025 and 5/27/25. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, moved by trustee Crane, seconded by trustee Pearson. Roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand,
Yes.
Trustee Soilu, Trustee Murphy, Trustee Pearson,
Yeah.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. 4-0. Now moving on to introduction of new staff. We've got Sarah, Assistant Sup, Sarah Jocko.
Great, thank you, President Wigand, members of the board, Dr. Smith, colleagues, and community members. I'm very pleased to introduce and welcome 2 new people with key special education roles. And first, I'd like to call up to the podium Dr. Heather Cash. And Heather will start on July 1st, although she's kind of already started, as our Director of Special Education, Early Learning, and Elementary. So Dr. Cash has more than 20 years of experience in education, including roles as a site administrator and director. For the past 2 years, she supported our elementary school sites as a coordinator of special education with a focus on early education. She's fostered partnerships between general education and special education to improve learning outcomes for students. Her advocacy for all students and commitment to improving the quality of education for all students will be important traits as she begins her new role. Her experience in both general education and special education provides her that valuable perspective to lead early childhood and elementary programs and support our goal of more inclusive programs and services. She has very strong interpersonal skills, an abundance of energy, and a deep commitment to the success of all students. She earned her bachelor's degree from Pepperdine University, her master's in educational administration from Cal Lutheran, and her doctorate in education from the University of Southern California. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Heather Cash into her new position as the Elementary Director of Special Education.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight, and I want to just tell you how full of gratitude I am to be part of Newport-Mesa Unified. I have enjoyed the last 2 years here, and I have friends and colleagues and mentors in the room and in the district, and I just can't wait to continue working with them in this new role and supporting what you value also, which is all students every day, giving every child exactly what they need. So thank you again for my time here. I thought for sure I'd hear a fight on from somewhere in the audience. No? Okay. 2 fight-ons. Okay, I'll take
And then
that.
would you like to introduce any family or friends? you brought
Yes,
with you
I brought my husband, also a Trojan in the back, David Cash. So thank you again for tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather. And then I'd like to call, I'll let you, that's okay. Thank you. That's right. And then I'd like to call Robert Nichols to the podium. So he joins, we'll take that. And he joins NMUSD from the warm Coachella Valley Unified School District, where he served as the Director of Special Education since 2022. And prior to his time in Coachella Valley, he was also the Director in Palm Springs Unified. So definitely likes that warm weather a little bit. So he began his career as an accountant, which thrilled Mr. Trader when he started talking about how to monitor the special education budget. So throughout his 2 decades, though, in education, he has extensive knowledge of special education, serving as a moderate severe teacher for 10 years, a special education teacher on special assignment, a special education program specialist, and special education coordinator. His experience with student assessment, data analysis, differentiated instruction, and functional classroom design will support our work with co-teaching, the alternative diploma pathway, and building inclusive programs at the secondary level. We're excited to welcome Robert to Newport-Mesa. He is a knowledgeable, experienced leader who's known for working closely with administrators, teachers, support staff, and families. So Rob obtained his bachelor's degree from Drexel University and master's degree in educational administration and special ed from Cal State University, San Bernardino. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Rob Nichols as the Secondary Director of Special Education.
Hi, thank you, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to be out of 116-degree weather, which it's already 116. But very excited to be here. We're relocating from the desert to Orange County. And I just have to say, I've been able to spend some time here already, and just the warm welcome that I've gotten really makes it an exciting place for me to be. My passion throughout my 22 years, which I just realized today has happened very fast, has really been inclusion and creating those inclusive environments to make sure that all really does mean all. And I was happy to see when I got here that my vision really aligns with that of Newport-Mesa, and I'm very excited to be able to continue that work here. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And then, Rob, did you want to introduce anyone?
I brought my husband tonight, Joe Chung, in the back. It's his first ever board meeting, so he was a little nervous.
So she wants to take your picture. Thank you.
All right. Well, and on to number 11, which is recognition. Dr. Torres.
Yes, good evening. And it's always a wonderful night when we have students in our audience. And so at this time, I'd like to welcome up Dr. Keith, I'm sorry, I called Dr. Keith Carmona. He's going to get one. And he tells me, well, you tell me you're going to be a Trojan. I'm not sure. Keith Carmona to come up, and he oversees our AVID program, and he's going to introduce our students tonight.
Good evening, President Wigand, trustees, Superintendent Smith, and Executive Cabinet. Tonight we are celebrating the accomplishments of some incredible students in our middle and high school AVID programs. As you know, AVID is a college readiness program now at 7 of our secondary campuses and 6 of our elementary schools. So each year, in a partnership with the Orange County Department of Education, Orange County secondary AVID schools are provided an opportunity to select their most outstanding 8th grade and senior students to be celebrated at a special ceremony that took place last month. One at the Diamond Club for our 8th graders, and then another one at the Barclay Theater at UCI for our seniors. So tonight we're bringing them up and having them recognized by the Board of Education for their excellence in all that they've done. So we're going to start with our 8th graders, and then we're going to introduce our high schoolers, and then I have one other short announcement or presentation for you. So tonight our AVID standout 8th grade students are from Costa Mesa Middle School, Netzi Morales Bravo. From Ensign Intermediate, Ethan Ocampo, and from T. Winkle Middle School, Renata San Roman. Not all of them are able to make it because here we are already in summer. And our AVID standout seniors are from Costa Mesa High School, Diego Reyes. From Early College High School, Victor Jimenez. From Estancia High School, Valerie Garcia Barajas. And from Newport Harbor High School, Giselle Aviles. Please join me in congratulating these outstanding AVID students. Finally, in a continued partnership with the AVID schools in Orange County, the Angels Baseball Foundation has a program that provides college scholarships for seniors based upon a rigorous application process. These scholarships are unique in that Angels Baseball evaluates the student's hard work and accomplishments and then ensures that the selected students attend college at no cost. The Angels will provide scholarships that cover the balance of their tuition and other costs that aren't already covered by whatever grants or scholarships that students have received. So ostensibly, the students receive full rides to their school of choice, which is pretty incredible. Tonight, we would like to recognize the students from Newport-Mesa who applied and were selected for this very prestigious honor. They also were able to attend a fancy ceremony already this spring. From Early College High School, Indigo Columber. And from Newport Harbor High School, Isabella Zubieta, Sophie Zubieta, May Goto, and Giselle Aviles. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And back to you, Dr. Torres.
Additionally, tonight we have another celebration of our spring athletes. And so at this time, I would like to welcome up Principal Mike Halt of Estancia High School, who can introduce his AD and coach.
Thank you, Dr. Torres, President Weigarten, trustees, Dr. Smith. It's my pleasure to be back here again, second time in 4 years, and I'd like to introduce the man responsible for that. You're right, our athletic director and head coach, Nate Goldrich.
Hopefully I don't screw this up this time, sorry. President Weigand, members of the board, Dr. Smith, executive cabinet, and guests. Thank you also to Dr. Mike Schock, who couldn't be here tonight, and Mr. Holtz for all of their support for our baseball program, and board member Anderson being there at Cal State Fullerton. I would like to introduce to you the 2025 CIF champions, Estancia Baseball.
Woo.
I know the paparazzi's here, but it's all about me right now. So camera first, okay? Smile. Okay. Now I'm going to step out. Let the paparazzi go.
Thank you and congratulations, gentlemen. Wonderful job.
All right, congratulations, everyone. Pull up the room clear.
We have an LCAP presentation, don't we?
It's just getting I mean, I'm not surprised. She's kind of in the middle. Yeah.
All right. Next on the agenda is a Harbor Council PTA report, but we don't have a report this meeting. So we have CSEA President Amy Ching.
Sorry, I'm used to going after Martha. Good evening, President Wygant, trustees, Superintendent Smith, cabinet, and guests. I want to congratulate all the students and staff for a great year and welcome all the new staff to the district. Speaking of new staff to the district, as we know, Leona and Jeff are retiring at the end of this month, and as part of that, we have new staff coming on. And I found myself wandering through YouTube and watching other school board district meetings through the evening. And my husband would come home and say, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm watching the school board meetings." And he's like, "Are you crazy?" But anyways, in watching the other school board meetings, I just found it very interesting. And one of the observations that I made was just in comparison to our district, what great leadership we have, and just the way we treat each other was really great. And so I just wanted to commend everybody, cabinet and trustees, for that. It's a great place to be, and I appreciate all of you for that. So on to the speech. Since the last board meeting, the district held ACE Day, Appreciating Classified Employees, where trustees, the superintendent, assistant supes, and other administrators spent time exploring the world of classified employees. It was a great day filled with community and laughter as we learned more about each other. I want to thank Kristen Clark, Administrative Director of Classified Personnel, for her dedication to this program and to supporting classified staff. A second think tank meeting was held last week. This is a place where those who participate are encouraged to voice their needs and develop pathways to improve their skills and performance for themselves and others in their classifications. Employees feel empowered and hopeful when they leave. This joy, the lighter spring in their step, is the fire we hope to ignite within them. Neither of these events can take place without your support. Through your leadership, we hope that administrators and supervisors throughout the district will aspire to create a culture where classified employees are valued and respected. We look forward to continuing to do the good work for students, staff, and the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, NMFT President Rhonda Reed.
Good evening, President Wygant, trustees, Superintendent Dr. Smith, cabinet, and guests here tonight. Well, we made it through another year. Got a little chaotic at the end. The last week of school was the longest week in the entire school year. But in the end, all students received a world-class education delivered by the most amazing teachers in all of Orange County. Thank you, trustees, for showing them their worth, their value, and how much you truly appreciate them. So as we look ahead towards the next year, which really just feels like it's right around the corner, I hope we can continue the tenets of LMI, timely and clear communication, transparency, and trust. So we have nearly 60 certificated educators retiring. I don't know if that's the correct number, but that's what we have. But I just want to talk about one retiree tonight, and that's one of yours, management, Leona Olson. So for 3 years, I have been working with her as president of NMFT. And one thing that stood out really early on is her graciousness. Toward all of our members. Not only is she extremely skilled in her job, her depth of knowledge in her profession is exceptional, but it is her heart for people that is truly extraordinary. Recently, I have again been shown and awestruck about the generosity of her graciousness. Not only does she strive, you're gonna make me cry. Not only does she strive to always do the right thing for all educators, but she shows them the same care whether they have been in the district their entire career or they're brand new. So not only does her leadership just astound anyone that works with her, it has touched her entire department as they have that same heart of care. So thank you, Leona Olson.
All right, now on to community input on non-agendized items.
Trustee Murphy.
I'm a little teary-eyed too. Yes. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items. Nope, that's not the right one. Thank you. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items on the regular meeting agenda. Comments on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per. Oh, God. What? Why did you do that to me? God. Just looking at Leona and getting teary-eyed. Okay.
Getting verklempt.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items not on the regular meeting agenda. Comments on non-agenda topics are limited to 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person. By order of the Brown Act, Section 54954.2, the board will take no action nor have any discussion on non-agendized items. The superintendent may provide clarification during superintendent's comments.
Okay, we have Eddie Garcia.
Good evening, everyone. Superintendent and board members, thanks for having me again. I'm Eddie Garcia, and here we are in June. Feels like just yesterday that I was here talking about what we're going to do for this school year, and then also Shalimar and that experience. And so time flies when you're having a great time. So thank you all. I just wanted to share a few things that we've been doing with Think Together. The idea for Think Together is changing the odds for kids, and that's really what we do. And we have a whole team that really looks at beyond the program. What else are we providing for the programs that we can potentially bring in for the kids? And we have grant people that work on our grants team that apply for grants to bring in different experiences that could supplement the learning for our kids. And so there was 2 wonderful events. While there was many things that we did this school year at Paularino, there was a couple of things that we brought in, a culinary arts program for 2 weeks that kids were able to experience actually with chefs that came in to work with our students to teach them some different how to make healthy snacks for kids, and that was a really great experience. And it was a 2-week experience that the kids have with some of these chefs that are also on like Top Chef and things of those natures that came in. So that was a really great experience. We also had a STEAM week where we had some Fulcrum team building organization. We also had Mad Science, and it was a whole week of kids just learning about science, building go-karts that they had to build. They also talked about sound. They had to do the egg drop, and just a variety of activities that they did that week. And so I have a few flyers that I want to share, and that has just their wonderful little faces doing their activities. So I will leave this for you all. It's been a great experience working with wonderful principal, Ms. Schwartz, over at Paularino, and also working with the team here with Christy Flores and her team. They're all wonderful people, and so we look forward to serving more kids next year. This year we finished at a rate of 95.5% was our average daily attendance that we had. So it was really great. We were really short of 100, but that's okay. And we had 89.89 students was the average. I know you can't make a 0.8 student, but we were contracted for 9 students, and that was where we ended. So we're very proud of the work we did at Paularino, and we look forward to working with everyone in the team in the following school year. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Next, we have superintendent's comments.
Certainly no corrections. I would just Think Together again for being a great partner and for the services and for keeping the board updated. So let's keep it up.
Okay. 16, community input on agendized items. Trustee Murphy.
This is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding items on the regular meeting agenda. Comments on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person. Speaker cards for items on the discussion action calendar may be held until that item is considered by the board if the speaker prefers.
Okay, and I'm going to try this name because you have very lovely writing, so I hope I get it. Angeli Andrade Vallarta? Sorry.
Hello, President Wigan, Superintendent, and Board. My name is Angeli Andrade Vallarta. Pardon, it was a rushed write-in. So I'm a mom of a College Park third grader in the Mandarin Immersion program. Super proud, and we're going to fourth grade. I appreciate, shout out to the past speaker. She absolutely loves Think Together. We're so excited to participate also in the summer school programming that is happening in just a couple of weeks. We cannot wait. But I wanted to just quickly come by. I missed an opportunity to speak in the closed session item regarding the the unique opportunity that the district has in protecting Banning Ranch. I have had the fortune to serve our city as Parks Commissioner, and through my time there, I quickly learned on the inequitable representation of individuals that live on the west side of Costa Mesa and how much green space we have available to our community. It's very unbalanced. And now working with the Planning Commission at the moment and for District 4, I'm realizing that it's quite a challenge for the city to figure out where are there pocket opportunities to create parks and bringing accessibility to our community. Investment on the city level to plan for, strategize, and actually carve out spaces to make into green space for our West Side community are far in 2025, 2028. So the reality is it's not happening. We have a couple of parks here, but it's not sufficient for the community, the local community. This is such an important opportunity to protect. Banning Ranch is an issue truly of environmental justice, I believe, for our community. The fact that it has, I got to hear some highlights of the open community session that happened at the community center, and learning that this preserve will have access directly or provide closer access to the beaches for our West Side residents is truly, truly powerful. So affordable housing, I can share with you from the planning perspective, is coming along slowly but surely. We just approved affordable housing in the Costa Mesa Motel right on Harvard Boulevard. There's actually going to be 38 live-work units right in that area, 960 West 16th Street. So there's already great congestion happening there. I highly, highly encourage you to preserve this space as green space. West Side truly, truly needs the green space. I'm sure you all heard the feedback also from the broader community at the Norma Herzog community feedback session. So really it's just a pitch. Please preserve green space for the West Side residents. Our children need it. They need that exposure. They need that connectivity with everything else that is happening in the world right now. We need that space to relieve, to regain some mind jokes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 17 is achievement. Report on early literacy and reading difficulty screener. Dr. Sir.
Yeah, so if I could please ask Dr. Lori Hernandez and her team to come up. We're excited tonight to present to you really two areas, the outstanding work that our team is doing in regards to early literacy and monitoring reading foundational skills, along with a requirement that came to us from the state in regards to having a universal reading screener to help address reading difficulties. So we have a great an outstanding set of information based off of a lot of tremendous work that our team is doing in regards to supporting early literacy in our district. Dr. Hernandez.
Good evening, President Wigand, members of the board, Superintendent Smith, staff, and guests. I'm excited to again stand before you to provide updates on early literacy, as I've done in the past. Tonight we have some new information about some legislation for screening students, and so we're going to be sharing that with you along with some data. Our efforts in literacy are rooted in Board Priority 1 and also in our beliefs that all of our students are our students. So what you hear tonight applies to all of our students, students with IEPs, multilingual learners. Every student in our system needs high quality reading instruction. Our early literacy efforts extend beyond just the teaching and learning department. This has been a partnership between teaching and learning, the early literacy department, early learning department, under Kathleen Leary, who started this work several years ago, special education and multilingual programs. We've been partners in this work, and our P3 literacy team has evolved and accomplished a lot in the last few years. We've strengthened systems for assessment, implemented new curriculum, and much more. The team includes teachers and administrators from preschool, TK, and elementary in both general and special education. So as usual, I'm excited to share some of our continued successes. We now have 150 teachers who have participated in the LETTERS training, which is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. And that includes classroom teachers, support teachers, and special education teachers. We've implemented Heggerty phonemic awareness and phonics curriculum district-wide. We're also proud of the expansion of our TK program. Even more than the expansion of the program is actually the high quality of the program that has led to some major gains. We've been measuring students when they enter kindergarten. And we found that like this year, 80% of our students who attended one of our TK programs entered with first sound fluency, which is one of the building blocks for learning to read. That compared to 63% of students who did not attend our TK program. So what that tells us is that our early learning programs are working. And obviously we can't control, we know some of those kids had TK in different places or had different preschool programs, but we're tracking our students that are attending our TK programs, and we're finding that the outcomes are really exciting for that. So as I've told you in past presentations, Acadience is how we measure phonemic awareness and phonics in our youngest learners. So phoneme segmentation fluency, the ability of students to actually hear the different sounds in a word, has grown significantly, and you can especially see that in Title I schools. We attribute the growth to a strong, cohesive curriculum, highly trained kindergarten teachers, support teachers, and also, as I mentioned, our strong early learning pre-K programs. Grade 1 also grew this year, so 16% more students than last year are proficient in decoding nonsense words, which means they can read unfamiliar words using just their skills in phonics. And so we're really excited to see that growth again this year. We also assess passage reading in first grade, and this is where we put some attention this past year due to our data showing that some students' progress slowed at this phase of reading development. We did see that students were stalling out at actually going from the decoding of the nonsense words into being fluent, accurate readers. So we put some emphasis on that, targeted some support, and we do see that with those targeted efforts, we've now, you can see there was a 10% growth in Title I schools in that measure. And I hope what that shows is that we're using data to inform our actions, to inform where we're putting our energy, where we're really thinking critically about what we're doing. And I think you'll see that with the new legislation coming, it's going to shift some of our practices for assessment, but I think it's going to be great improvement in what we're doing, what we're already doing. So Senate Bill 114 is what we're talking about, which requires the screening of all students in kinder, first, and second grade for reading difficulties. And it's based upon research that early identification and intervention is critical. The good news is that Newport-Mesa is already doing this. We started this work, for many years, even prior to my 4 years here, the district had a strong history in this area. So in the past 4 years, we've really spent a lot of time and effort on training, on looking at how we're screening students, how we're benchmarking students, how we're progress monitoring students. So this is not going to be such a drastic shift for our district as it might be for others. We do already have systems. We just need to make some changes to our systems to align with the legislation. So our team tonight is going to share with you a recommendation to consider as part of this legislation. And our team tonight we have Christina Fink-Manfrey, she's one of our ELD TOSAs. We have Jamie Nye from the Special Education Department, also a TOSA. Maggie Dodge, she's one of our full-time support teachers from Victoria Elementary. And Shannon Haney is one of our teaching and learning TOSAs.
Hi there. Okay, so in December, the State Department of Education released the approved list from the selection committee of the screeners that districts in California were allowed to choose from. And so these were our 4 screeners that we had to choose from. And we eliminated the bottom one there, Roar, because it did not offer an option for us for kindergarten students. And the bill is for kindergarten, first and second grade students. So that one got eliminated right away. And then the other one we eliminated was Multitudes. It is a one-time only screener, so we would still have to have a cadence in order to know if our students were making progress. So we eliminated those 2, and we opted to pilot Mira Learning and Amplify, which is the M-Class Dibbles edition. So we had a brief abbreviated pilot. We had full-time support teachers from each of our 4 zones, so 1 school from each zone. And some of our classroom teachers from the P3 committee also participated. And they were trained on each of the different measures, like a 45-minute Zoom after school. And they each did about 8 students per grade level per school. The teachers had about 8 to 10 days to complete the assessments and give them a try, and then they completed an evaluation form at the end that was provided from the county. And Maggie's going to talk to you. She was one of our piloting teachers.
Good evening. I'm going to talk about the M-Class Dibbles assessment first. This was the first screener that we piloted. It is the most similar to our current Acadience benchmarking system. It is a bit upgraded. Many measures that are in the Acadience are repeated in M-Class, and the students are assessed one-on-one with a teacher. Unlike Acadience, however, M-Class does the scoring for us and makes recommendations for next steps in instruction. The Amira, on the other hand, uses AI to assess students. It's computer administered, and we experienced a lot of glitches and extended lag time for the students because Amira, couldn't respond to the individual students in front of her. Because we didn't administer the assessments ourselves, we didn't understand exactly how she was capturing the data. The reports were not very informative to us in terms of instructional steps. And the scoring often took 24 to 72 hours, kind of defeating the purpose of using AI to save time.
So just to go into a little bit more about M-Class, which is our recommendation, the M in M-Class stands for mobile classroom. And M-Class is like the digital platform that houses the actual assessment. The suite of assessments are called DIBBLES, which has been around for decades, and people in the room probably have heard of it. DIBBLE stands for, of course, it's an acronym, Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills. Some positives about M-Class for us is that, like we've mentioned, it's very similar to Acadience. The same measures that Lori presented earlier will be represented in the new assessment. The benchmarks are slightly different, but I mean, it'll be a very similar transition, easy transition for our teachers. The measures are also case 6. The data in M-Class is normed, it's updated. The parent-teacher reports are very visually appealing and they're really easy to read, which is really helpful, and we will have immediate access to the results. So here's just an example of a parent report for a fictional student named Emma Ashley. We love this first question. Why is Emma being assessed? The teachers and administrators at our school want Emma to read successfully. Full stop, like right there. That's the clarity of that statement kind of just shows our goal. It then goes on to, which is really helpful, explain some of the measures that the student took, so letter names and phonemic awareness, and then defines for parents what phonemic awareness actually is. And I love the statement, can your child identify the first, middle, and last sound in sun, right? So just the clarity of that is just really helpful. M-Class also gives parents reports on things they can do at home and on the go to help support their students. So it's going to be very helpful. And now we'll hear from Krista.
Good evening. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the implications of this legislation on our multilingual learners. So the legislation really looks at our multilingual learners through through an equity lens, which is great. It's what we're already doing here in Newport-Mesa. But things that they particularly call out is that we ensure that our multilingual learners are neither over-identified for special education through this testing, nor under-identified for academic supports, that we use culturally and linguistically appropriate screening tools, which both tools we piloted are linguistically appropriate. If the primary language, actually, do we need to screen our students in their primary language if they do not speak sufficient English to be screened? And I'll talk to you about those details in the next couple slides. If a primary language screener is unavailable, though, an alternate process should be used, which we already have here in Newport-Mesa, which is great. But I'm going to explain to you just about the 4 pathways on how we'll screen our multilingual students. So one way that we would do this is just to assess students in English. And that would happen if a student can understand directions in English, if they've received some instruction and exposure to English, or if they've scored a level 2 or 4 on their summative LPAC, which is the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, or a 2 to 3 on the initial LPAC, because that tells us that they have sufficient English. We would assess the student in their primary language, and that would be Spanish, because our M class, which we're proposing that we adopt, comes in a Spanish assessment. So we would do that if a student is in Spanish dual immersion programs, so our Whittier students in K2 would be assessed in Spanish. If a student cannot understand directions in English, if they're newly arrived, a newcomer 12 months or less in the US, or if they demonstrate some basic skills in Spanish. Of course, we don't want to put a Spanish language test in front of a student who doesn't demonstrate those basic skills and just frustrate them. Okay. And I want to take a look at that star. We, as a multilingual TOSA team, we would recommend that students be assessed in Spanish after going through our own process, which is called a newcomer welcome kit, where we meet our newcomer students, we assess them for their proficiency in their primary language. We would assess students in English and their primary language, Spanish, if they are in, again, the Spanish dual immersion program, 3rd through 6th grade, because those students have received instruction in both English and Spanish for 50% of their day at that point. Or if a student demonstrates reading risk in English, so we've assessed them in English, they show reading risk, and they have some basic skills in Spanish, we would assess that student once again using the Spanish assessment. All right, and then the last process, sorry, got cut off a little bit. Our alternative process, again, that newcomer welcome kit, or that welcome meeting. If a student cannot understand directions in English, again, if they're a newly arrived newcomer, and if they have primary language other than Spanish, so these would be maybe students who are Russian speaking, right? We would do our alternative process, which would be to go out to screen the student to see if they have primary language. We would use our specialized interpreters to help with that. We just want to look at those students not through a deficit model, but through an asset-based model to see what they know in their own language. Okay, so that is everything with multilingual supports. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. She's going to talk about special education.
Okay, hello, thank you. I'll be talking about students on IEPs and 504. The legislation has allowed exceptions. So the exceptions that are allowed are the diagnosed students with reading disabilities, an exception for IEP and 504 students, and students that are currently assessed in the assessment process. However, in Newport-Mesa, we are using DIBELS to inform instruction. Therefore, all of our students will participate in district-wide M-class and DIBELS assessments, unless their IEP team has recommended alternative assessments. And why? Because assessing all students aligns with our current IEP testing recommendations for district testing. It continues current baseline and goal progress monitoring data points. It maintains the integrity of our district's longitudinal data. It supports collaboration between general education and special education teams. It enables teams to adjust instruction and group students efficiently or effectively. It streamlines our assessment tools and reduces duplications of efforts.
All right, so if approved later during discussion action, our plan is to train thoroughly train all of our full-time support teachers. Every one of our sites has a full-time support teacher. Title I schools have 2. So those people would be extensively trained, and they would be our first assessors, because the validity of the data is really important to us, and we've put a lot of work into making sure everyone administering Acadience has been highly trained. We don't want to sacrifice that with the adoption of a new tool. So we're going to, and we have access to the full-time support teachers, where classroom teachers, to get them for 6 hours for a training is a little more difficult at the start of the year. We don't want to pull kindergarten teachers out the first week of school for training. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our full-time support teachers being really our experts, our first assessors. They're going to do all the screening initially, because we want them to work out the kinks, to learn the tool, to learn, to be the experts. We piloted the software with a couple different devices. So teachers have laptops. We also have student Chromebooks and then iPads. We found that iPads with the pencils is the best way, because you can actually see the student's face and engage with them better than having the screen in front of you. So iPads are the preferred tool. So we're gonna do that with our full-time support teachers. We have grade level kits, so although the teacher is on the device, the student is actually looking at paper. So they'll have a paper that has the letters, and they're reading from the paper. So it's comfortable for the student, and then the teacher's the one scoring on the device with the iPad. And that's how we get the instant results, as opposed to our system now with Acadience is these little booklets, and it's a lot of manual work. And so we feel like this is really going to enhance and make more efficient our assessments. So we're going to start with that. Our benchmarking and screening windows are going to stay the same, because it is basically the same assessment. So all of that will stay the same as last year. And then we're going to offer training for classroom teachers in year 1 who want it. So we do have some really skilled primary grade teachers that would want to assess their own students. We're not going to restrict that. So we're going to offer some after school sessions for teachers that want to do that. And then at Whittier, the Whittier teachers will need to be trained in the Spanish assessment, because it does need to be a bilingual assessor giving that assessment. And so the team at Whittier would be trained, and they would be the ones assessing their own students, supported centrally by the teaching and learning and multilingual departments. So tonight it is recommended, later tonight on discussion action, that the board approve the M-Class Dibbles 8th edition as our screener for K2. We will also be implementing it for 3-6. So we won't be keeping Acadience. We would switch over our whole system, but the legislation is specific to K2. And at this time, if the board has any questions, we would be happy to answer them.
Trustee Murphy?
Thank you. Sounds great. I do wonder about that 4th option that doesn't even offer kindergarten. What was that on that 4th option?
Yeah, we were surprised. Normally when the state adopts something like that, they do have other ways of proving that like your system meets that, or I don't know how 4 companies are going to sustain the whole state of California. That is a question we definitely have, especially when the technology is already glitchy on the other system that we piloted. So
when the AI doesn't work.
Exactly. So yeah, we had the same thoughts.
Okay, so in case, I might have just missed it. This is actually my real question. Is dyslexia on here?
Yeah, so that when they say reading difficulties screener, that would include, that's including screening for dyslexia, right? Because if we have a student that is screening that they're having reading difficulties, the legislation is requiring that we do that screening and we dig deeper on those students earlier.
Okay.
Yes.
So because it's my understanding that it's harder to necessarily detect dyslexia, essentially, right? And so
yeah, so the purpose of this, so the purpose of a screener is to say, okay, these students are having reading difficulties. We're going to do some really targeted, focused cycles of intervention and continue to assess and progress monitor. And if they don't respond, then we would suspect that maybe there's something else going on, and that would then go to tiers 2 and 3 and assessment. We would not, in the general education setting, be diagnosing dyslexia. The special education testing process is what would maybe tease out a learning disability. This is like a risk screening.
Okay.
So the point of this is to help us identify those students earlier and intervene earlier, and know that we're assessing the right kids.
Okay. And so if they weren't responding, basically it's if they're not responding to the initial interventions, then you're
Exactly. It's putting in place. We already have, so we have great systems. We've already been screening students. We have good systems for intervention. We're monitoring them. And at a certain point, if they don't respond, then it's time to look at what else might be going on with that kiddo. Sometimes they need glasses. Sometimes they're tested for special education and they qualify for an IEP. But if we don't screen them, we have no idea what's good. We just say, oh, they're not learning to read. We don't know why. And in our district, we have such a great kind of history of screening and benchmarking students that I understand why the legislation was put in place. It's put in place because there are districts that aren't screening students. So that is the idea and we're going to use it as an opportunity to hopefully improve our systems and really make sure we're in a really good position now where, 5 years ago, we couldn't guarantee that everyone was screened. When we look back at data from 5, 6, 7 years ago, we see that we missed some classes. We'll run like longitudinal data and we see, we were not doing a great job of making sure 100% of kids are assessed. Part of this legislation is requiring that 100% of kids are assessed unless they meet one of those exemptions. And we feel like it's a really good checks and balances system. So we're not upset about it. We feel like we're just going to use it to make our system stronger. There's some money coming from the state to help us implement this that will provide the training for teachers. And so we're seeing this as such an enhancement to our system.
Oh, good. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. I'm also really excited about this. I think the numbers that we're seeing are just incredible. I think it basically the one page that shows the non-Title I and the Title I are like the definition of what happens when everyone is being asked to have higher expectations of students and doing the evaluation and the work that needs to be done. Everyone is rising. And so I think this is a really powerful indicator of that. I am really excited just also overall. I don't know that a majority of districts have seen the levels of increasing literacy after COVID. I think it's just really incredible and speaks to the dedication of our staff and one of the reasons we hired Dr. Smith. So it's just really wonderful to see the direct results of that. I also love something that is very parent friendly. So I know that the Acadians data was not very parent friendly at all. It was difficult for, I think, some people who were not trained experts to know what it was referring to. My question is how and when will we be sharing that data with parents? I know one of the things that came up actually with the DWAC presentation and then also Carmen has shared is just sending out a flyer about like LPAC, what levels people should be assessing at, getting a flyer that's in parents' hands rather than just the official document that is mailed that people don't necessarily know what it means. And so, yeah, I just wanted to know if there's kind of subsequent trainings then, if there's an entire group of second graders at one school and they all need to work on phonemic awareness, are we also talking to the parents? What are kind of the next steps? How do we share this with them? And then what are the next steps?
That's a very loaded question. So the first thing is, the first step is us getting to know the parent report. So we've already talked to the company about also providing a training for our principals and how to interpret and communicate about the data. The parent reports come in English and Spanish. We've also given feedback that we do have other languages other than Spanish. And while they don't currently exist, we're going to be working with them to ensure that we can represent the other languages, even if it's with like a paired document that has the translation of every section of it where they can see the number and understand what that means. So that the first step is like the papers itself. And then our team will be looking at at what points do we communicate? Is this part of now the parent-teacher conference for K-2? There is a requirement in the legislation that we communicate with parents, obviously. That doesn't mean to us just sending this letter home. So we're going to look at structures for, do we share this in the fall parent-teacher conference, in the spring parent-teacher conference? Do we hold some kind of, informational meeting? Do we create supplemental videos for parents? All of those pieces are still kind of TBD as we are just branching into this whole world of these great parent reports and parent tools. And the company has said with the growth, because they're one of 4 companies adopted statewide, obviously, they're going to grow their toolkit as well. And they've, we'll see what happens, but they've promised some more parent supports and things like that they can provide for us.
And then as a kind of follow-up to that, for some of our like this kind of information is ideal for expanded learning opportunities if we're doing tutoring after school. Is there like a permission slip piece that like parents would need to sign off, or what? To me, this is exactly the information that teachers that are wanting to stay after, or tutors or other people would love to have access to. So how will we balance that? What is the next step?
Yeah, I think, Christy and I work closely together, and we've talked about this, and we do have the ELOP admin interns, which work during the day and after school, and they know the kids really, deeply. They know all about them and their needs, and I think we're always looking for ways to enhance the academic supports. And with Christy in that position, I think, we've added some things, and we definitely would want to have some targeted supports in place.
Are you going to ask about the language? I think you mentioned. What?
I think it had to do with the newcomer Russian, and then you mentioned the fact that you're going to try your best to make it friendly to newcomers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think my question connected to that is it, to use either like the English screener with like a teacher that's going one by one through it, but then working with our translator, like what is that? So the parent is still getting the same information, the teacher's still getting that same information, but in the correct language.
Yeah, I think that's the part that is more difficult when we get into all the different world languages in our schools. With Spanish, it's very easy. The report comes in Spanish. We have so much staff that can call parents and communicate that. So it's as with any data, we would make sure it's accessible. We have district interpreters that can do that. We have school community facilitators. We have all of these people that can help support that. So I think we'll need to look at how we set up meetings, or you want to talk about that? Come up here, my friend.
Did you feel her? Did you feel her
She'll tell you about it.
I just wanted to let you know that Christina alluded to we call it a welcome toolkit. It's a screener we've been doing for many years for all newcomer students in elementary. It's pretty comprehensive. We're going to make it better with this information because this is obviously an added literacy piece. So it is more comprehensive already in other ways, but we're going to always try to enhance it. So we're already doing that with our newcomers in elementary, so we'll just make it better with this.
Great, thank you so much.
Any other questions? I have a quick question. So
You said 100% of our students will get this assessment. When and I guess when during the school year will they have this? And will they have multiple times a year to get assessed?
Right now, we do 3 times a year.
Yep.
So the legislation requires screening at least 1 time a year, and that would be the point where you assess, 100% of your kids. We would probably, as far as state reporting, use the mid-year as our reported benchmark, because at the beginning of the year, because by mid-year, a lot of those newcomer students would be ready to be assessed, right? If they would have some basic conversational English, they would have some skills under their belt. So we would probably use that, because at the beginning of the year, sometimes, there's different circumstances, but we've been getting almost 100% of our students right now at the beginning, mid, and end year point. We'll be assessing all 3. And we'll be looking at the data. The requirement to the state is just that you say, this is our screening window and this is when we do it. And they don't have any parameters around at what point in the year that's done. So we'll continue to do the 3. And then if they do not pass, so to speak, if there's concerns, then we use a progress monitoring plan. And right now we're doing that with these booklets where we have to decide, okay, if they screen this way, we put them in this progress monitoring and all of that. The system actually will do that automatically. So after we assess a child, it'll suggest, okay, in 6 weeks, assess them here. And so it actually helps us go on a plan with a student and gives instructional suggestions and all that kind of stuff. So we're hoping that it actually gets used more than the progress monitoring booklets because it's so easy to use.
And so when a kid doesn't get to that level and they suggest, hey, you guys this child needs intervention support, what do we put where that benchmark is? Or is it a state created benchmark of what we expect them? Or is it, grade level? What is that benchmark?
Yeah, it's it's basically based on, the developmental progression of reading. Like a kindergartner should be to this point, a first grader should be to this point. It's closely aligned to, the reading foundational standards in the Common Core, but those aren't as specific. We know that we want kids at the beginning of kinder to have this skill. We know by mid first year, we want them to read this many correct words a minute. So, when they don't, then it would say, okay, this child needs work on these skills. And then that's when we deploy our support staff, our small group instruction. The teacher can do things. We have a bunch of different tools that we've developed over the last 3 years for teachers to pull a small group. Okay, these kids need their long vowels, need a reteach on their long vowels. Let's pull them to the back table and let's work some more on that. The basic premise is that we're not giving up on any child in our system. Whether you have an IEP, you're a multilingual learner, you're an advanced learner, every child in our system needs to learn to read. That's their right. So that's kind of the system we've employed. So we're still monitoring. We have kids that get into the upper grades and we still have concerns. We don't give up at that point. So the good thing is with this system, we're going to be able to now capture digitally a child's entire history of their reading progression, which then hopefully to Ms. Murphy's point earlier, will help us to identify when it's something more than just they need more reteach. When have we tried everything and now we need to look and see what's going on with a student?
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, if not, thank you. And I this is great information on early literacy, and I hope we can do something similar for our mathematics side of the assessments and see how we can equally create our students to push to that next level of math as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great presentation. Okay, number 18 is informational items, and we have a legislative and state budget update by Trustee Crane.
Thank you. Legislatively, the California School Board Association, which is our professional organization, has been active with in supporting about 10 bills. And tonight I will just highlight about 4 or 5. One of them is AB 1381, which is Education Workforce Housing Pre-Development Funding. This measure would establish and fund a revolving loan account in the Office of the California State Treasurer to provide no-interest loans to school districts and COEs, which is County of Education boards, to assist with preparing feasibility studies and conduct pre-development work for education workforce housing projects. It's AB 1381. Those are all proposed bills. Second one is AB 1224, expanding access to substitute teachers. This bill would expand the amount of time an authorized substitute teacher could serve in a single general, special, or career technical education classroom from 30 days to 60 days. Another one is SB 374. This bill will reduce school district and county of education boards' administrative burdens. This one is heavily popular, and I believe it passed. It basically streamlines the hundreds of reports that LEAs have to submit to the state. So the bill, I believe it passed. So less paperwork, less bureaucracy, less time spent on reports that are potentially redundant and unnecessary. AB 1390 is to modernize school and county board member stipends. This bill will modernize the 40-year-old compensation thresholds in law for district and county school board members. It would bring existing stipend rates into alignment with the impacts of inflation and provide that school district and county boards of education retain the authority to determine the amount of the stipend within the cap. Those are some of the highlights. As far as the budget, I know we got the May revise, which made us a little bit nervous. Apparently, there's now a projected $12 billion deficit. It may be growing in the future, and the governor's looking at $1.8 billion deferrals for schools. So, and I'm sure we'll be hearing about that a little later tonight. So, I'm sure the suspense is building. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Number 19 is our consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Trustee Pearson, seconded by Trustee Crane. Roll call vote.
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay, now moving on to number 20, which is our public hearing and report section. 20A is report on SELPA local plan, services plan, and SELPA annual budget plan for the 2025-26 school year. Dr. Jocham.
Okay. Good evening again. So special education local plan area is what is the, SELPA is the acronym for that. So as we talk about what the local plan is, every SELPA within California, there's about 130 or so SELPAs, are required to have a local plan. And the local plan really outlines the governance plan for the SELPA, how they're going to provide services to students with disabilities, and how funding is allocated to district programs and to SELPA programs. So what's important to remember about this is that the vast majority of SELPAs in California are multi-district SELPAs. So the local plan becomes very important to them because each district wants to know which share of the pie they get, and each district has to ensure that all of the services are provided to all students within the SELPA. So in a previous position when I was the SELPA director for East San Gabriel Valley SELPA, 13 school districts, one school district provided the orthopedically impaired program, one school district did the visually impaired program. They got different amounts of money off the top of that SELPA budget to provide that program. And they also had to assure to the rest of the districts that they were providing those services. So as a single district, we're just assuring that our district is doing all of those same things just within the confines of our district's programs. So this year and every year, different pieces of the local plan are asked to be looked at. Now, the annual service and the annual budget plan are looked at every year. So that's what we did for this year. And how we did that, when we took the information, we were able to meet with some representatives from our community advisory committee, so parents of students with special needs. Trustee Pearson was there. We had an elementary principal rep, a special education teacher rep, and we had members of our district business department to really walk us through the annual budget plan. So the annual service plan, the requirements in Ed Code are that the plan itself identifies the IEP services that a district intends to provide at all the schools in the district and the schools that we have students in, either non-public schools or residential treatment centers. And the annual service plan also has a case miss requirement so that we as districts and SELPAs throughout California, they can compare some of our data. So everyone calls specialized academic instruction a code 330, and speech and language is 415. So if someone's trying to gather statewide data, they'll be able to say, let's look at code 415 for all of that information. And what it does is it looks like this, which is a very hard graphic to read, so you should have it in a different format in front of you to be able to read better. But what it does across the top is it lists all of the numbers. So 330 specialized academic instruction, 415 speech and language, and then down your left-hand column is all the schools in the district. And it's really the projection of what IEP services we provide at those sites. So for every school within our district, we provide speech and language. Every school in our district, we provide specialized academic instruction. Not every school in the district do we provide audiology services. So when we know we have students who have those needs, that's definitely clicked. And it also, though, doesn't preclude us from a student who moves into Adams and who has a need for an audiologist. We add that service, it will show up on next year's report. So that's the annual service plan. The annual budget plan, it lists our projected revenue. So what is our funding that we're going to expect to see for next year, and then how are we going to spend that money. So again, this is really important for multi-district SELPAs to understand because they're all looking for a piece of that pie. For us, as a single district SELPA, that budget is adopted along with and is part of Jeff's all-fund budget that you're going to see coming up. So what's important, I think, to look at when we look at our revenue and our expenditures is that when we look at our revenue, the state and the federal government do not provide the enough support for our students with IEPs to provide those services. In fact, the federal government is a little over 5% of our funding. The state pays for some, and the district's general fund, local property tax, pays for 74% of that. So it's just really helpful to kind of keep that in mind when we talk about federal special education, state special education. The amount of money they put towards our programs and services is really not very much. And then our projected budget expenditures, and we went over those with the committee. Excuse me. So again, this might be a little small to see. This just really talks about the revenue, and you can see there when you look at AB 602, AB property tax, the percentage of funding for our special education budget is about 74%. So that's just important to remember. And then table 2 is what we project for expenditures. So as typical in a school district, the majority of our costs are staff related. Paying for teachers, paying for aides, paying for services for students. So it pretty much mirrors what we have on the general ed side of the budget in terms of how much of our budget goes for staffing and services. So kind of the next steps in the adoption of the annual service and budget plan. Right after this, we're going to have a public hearing as required, and then at the next board meeting on June 24th, the board will hopefully adopt the annual service and budget plan. We're required to have Orange County Department of Education superintendent review those plans and sign off on them. And then we submit those plans to the California Department of Education by the end of the month. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Trustee Crane?
Yes, so thank you for that. So special ed funding comes from, federally speaking, from IDEA, right?
Yes, IDEA, yes.
IDEA, we call it, okay. So, and I had heard that initially when it was created, the federal government was going to give us 40% of what we need, but we never have gotten more than 14%.
I think at the height in, maybe during ESSER, we think we were maybe up to 17 or 18%, but.
And now we're down to 5%?
Yes, under 6, so it's a little over 5.
Is that typical of all the districts in California? So no wonder some of them are worried. I mean, I know that superintendents have mentioned how SPED is costing a lot at the expense of the school districts.
Yes.
Because they're not getting the federal money that was promised.
Yes, and we have seen also a significant reduction in our state money over the past, as we projected this budget, I believe, Mr. Trader, right? We've seen a significant reduction in the state money as well.
Wow. Thank you.
Any other? Oh, Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. There's some piece to this that I clicked on that I hadn't seen before, so I was like delving deep into it.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, yeah, the thing that was interesting was a lot of them don't refer to any specific numbers, but this specifically said there must be like the caseload for 55 and under for SLPs, which I thought was interesting because there's not numbers for a variety, almost all the other roles. And it looks like we currently have 54 was in the note. So if we're supposed to be under 55, if if we get 56 next year, do we do a consultant, or does that trigger then we hire someone else, or?
So the state education code says that every SLP or within a SELPA has to have an average of 55. So there may be somebody who has 70 and somebody who has 30, depending on how their caseload works. But your average overall divided by all of your SLPs should be not exceed 55. And so what we do is if we monitor that a few times a year to make sure we're still within that, because we know kids come in and out of special ed. And if that were to be the case, we would need to hire staff to make sure we're meeting that education code requirement.
Oh, fast. Okay. And then I also was looking at this lovely section 545, residential treatment, one that I have questions about all the time. And I noticed that there is an option next to it, as there are for all of them, that we can check the box that we offer it, or as all of these, we can check service is not currently provided. And there's certain things that we are not providing currently because others are providing it, like specialized orthopedic services, or there's a reading thing, or a kind of recreational piece. So what is the dividing line? How's the decision made from check, yes, we're offering it, to service is not currently provided?
So with some of them, like our birth to 2 or our birth to 3 services, where we say we haven't adopted that code because we don't provide that service, it's because our contract with the state is not for students birth to 2 with different disabilities. We only serve children birth to 3 who are deaf and hard of hearing. So another agency provides that service. So that's why we don't adopt that. Our students in Newport-Mesa, before they turn 3, if they have visual impairments or they have orthopedic impairments, they're served through a contract, a vendor through Regional Center. So that's how that is done. So for some other ones like recreation therapy, and that was one we actually talked about when we met with the group for quite a while, that's also a very challenging, I don't even know if there's any colleges right now who offer that credential for rec therapy. So we look at what services, what goals are we working on, and we say, who else could provide that? So for us, it might be our adapted physical education teachers that are doing some type of rec therapy. It might be our occupational therapist. It might be a physical therapist. So depending on what the student needs, they still get what they need, but it might be from a different provider.
Oh, well, so what would allow us to then say we're not going to be the ones providing residential treatment?
I don't know that there is that option.
Expensive for us.
I don't know that there is that option, but I will be glad to look into that further. Because it is part of the continuum of services that you're required to offer within a SELPA.
Yeah, so I would love to follow up, because we're not offering mentoring currently.
We have students who have mentoring, and they receive mentoring through our other programs within the district. It's just not what we write in as a service in the IEP that meets that definition. So we do have several students in their individual transition plan, their ITP, that talk about how they're going to get some mentoring to learn a trade, to learn different things. It's just for us, we haven't adopted that code because it's served in a different manner. Mm-hmm. But I will take that and look into it and see if there's anyone across the state who has said, well, if we check no, does that mean we don't have to provide services to residentially placed students?
Yeah. Or we just provide, like, here's a list of references. Here are some spots, Thank you. That's helpful.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Well, I think
hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But I think the problem is if the family sues to get the residential treatment, then we have to provide it.
Is that bad? If others are providing it, like an outside entity.
But we couldn't provide our own residential.
We're not equipped.
But we're not providing our own of some of the others either. I just think it's an
So a
interesting
district
combo
or a
maybe for another
SELPA is
day.
required to provide the full continuum of services. I think what I hear is Trustee Anderson saying, if you have the option to say, oh, we don't do this, another agency is providing it, can you do that? I don't know under Ed Code if you can do that. It is something that is a required component for us, but.
And then I guess, so my question is, so if we say, no, we're not providing it, then what happens?
Well, if we said we're not providing residential treatment services and we're not, and it's part of a student's IEP, we would be liable for those services.
Yeah.
And they would ask us for that. So I get her question.
Yeah, no,
I think it's a little bit different.
If it's optional.
Yeah, I don't believe it's optional. I appreciate the reading of it that way, and I will double check.
She's just bound and determined to get us out of this no matter what.
But I
It's so expensive and we don't have oversight. And so it's a tricky one for me. So if others were if other entities were doing it as they are with other things that I would think we are also required to do.
I will explore and get back to you on that, but I would not, my understanding is we definitely have that obligation within the district.
I have, sorry, so that
go
wasn't
ahead.
technically my question, but it's interesting to think about. So in looking at the budget plan, and I don't think I don't want to bug Jeff with this so much, so I think it's more appropriate to ask you, Sarah, but so
10 pages.
other proposed revenue, it looks like, what is it, 2.4? Sorry, it's really hard to read these numbers. What is the other proposed revenue?
It's on your,
It's an attachment.
The other projected revenue?
Yes, thank you.
It's about 2.5, but.
Yeah, just wondering what the
what it
other
is.
was.
Yeah.
Actually, that might be a Jeff.
So the
other
special ed
projected,
receives grants in addition to just the AB 602 kind of thing. And then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but there are some interagency revenues that get shared that show up on this report.
Yeah, so we have an alternative dispute resolution grant we get every year. We have our workability is a grant, so it's not considered part of that state funding or federal funding. It's considered an augmented piece of that. So there's some smaller grants that we're given that's what that is.
And
a piece of.
who's funding the grants then?
Usually it's their state grants.
Okay.
The majority of them are. Sometimes they don't want to put money. It used to be all categorical in special ed. You had all these different categories of funding. And then they said, we don't want to do that. We're going to fund you now based on your ADA. And yet they still said, but we know there's still some other kind of special things out there that we still want to fund you for, but they don't want to have to be committed to it long term. So at some point they could say, we don't have the money to fund an ADR grant. We don't have the money to fund workability.
Which brings me to my next question is, if you see the state looking to cut some of this funding, any idea where they would go?
Well, they've already reduced our basic, what's called our AB 602, just our flat funding. They also can look at, there used to be an out-of-home care, so for students in group homes, they don't give us that anymore. Or it's much, much less. They've really put the criteria, and we do have a lot of students in group homes in Newport-Mesa that we serve. There's
How are
also,
we paying for that then currently? Sorry,
Yes.
just to interrupt.
Yes.
But keep going, but how are we paying for the group home then
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
General fund?
Yes, it's
Okay.
part of that 74% of general fund. Because unfortunately, several students who move into group homes have pretty significant mental health challenges or behavioral challenges, and that require either some in-home support or support at school or a non-public school support.
So you could see cuts coming in, and where else potentially?
Just overall, I think they'll just continue to cut our overall
little
grant.
pieces of
And
it.
then as a district, they would say, you choose then how you're going to, where you're going to make your cuts across the board in special ed. So that's, we used to get separate money for low incidence. So for students who were deaf, blind, or orthopedically impaired, they've rolled that into our base funding, but then they reduced our base funding. So that's really what they would do. They wouldn't say, I'm going to take it away from this part or this part. It's just the overall grant. They would say, everyone, instead of getting $1,000 per student, we're going to give you $990 per student, something like that. Is how they would do it.
Okay, that sounds fun. So my other question, I guess, because I never see this and I wasn't exactly sure, but we have a great autism preschool program, and I realize I haven't brought this up before, but where is the funding coming from for that? And
well, pretty much for every program we have in the district in special education, it's the general fund that's
so
funding
there's no special funding for autism preschool program.
There's a very small preschool grant that we get, but it's mostly like it's a few $1,000s, so we wouldn't even consider that. Kind of, we offset that, we spend that first if we need materials for them or supplies. But every program, every service is essentially funded by our general fund.
Except for 5%.
Except for, well, it's about 26%. So if you figure this, the feds do under 6, then the state does what, 21% of that, and the rest of it. So 74% is district.
Any other questions?
Happy news.
All right.
With that, I'm going to open up the public hearing. 20B is public hearing for SELPA Local Plan Services Plan and SELPA Annual Budget Plan for the 2025-2026 school year. The hearing is now open at 7:27. Are there any comments? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:27. Okay, next up, 20C, report on local control and accountability plan and the 2025 budget.
We're just going to keep going with all the exciting stuff. And while we make fun of this long document, I do think we can all recognize that Vanessa takes making the most out of this compliance issue, something that drives our district, keeps us focused, holds us accountable, and supports students in their learning. So it is at its base a long compliance item. It is, though, it holds within it focus, accountability, and collaboration in a way that Vanessa is always bringing in year after year to make it as fruitful as possible, knowing we have to do it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely introduction to the local control and accountability plan. So President Wigand, Superintendent Smith, members of the board, executive cabinet, and guests. Tonight before you, we have our local control and accountability plan. And it really is a partnership that brings us together. And it's a twofold aspect. The plan is both looking forward, projecting into 25-26, and then a reflection of the 24-25 school year. Coming in at a lean 155 pages minus the 35 pages of instruction, it's only 120 pages of reading. And it does have the required aspects that you see on the left-hand side, starting with the budget overview as required by the state. Every LCAP you look at will have the same 3 pages. We have a plan summary. We really reflect on the many successes we've had over the course of the year. We look at our technical assistance, the multitude of educational partners that we engage. And then we round out the experience not only with the goals and actions and results, but the increased or improved services we're providing with the local control funding formula supplemental funds. And then, of course, the action tables that account for some of the dollars the district receives. The big thing to write home about is the adjustment that we have made in our LCAP this year to really align the LCAP goals with the board priorities. So previously, our LCAP Goal 2 is now our LCAP Goal 1, putting student academic success at the forefront, while also making sure that we're providing the whole child support. Previous Goal 4, family and community engagement, is now Goal 3 in alignment with the board priorities. So we really want to highlight that as one of the biggest changes that we've made to our LCAP. In terms of the budget
Direct
overview for
alignment.
parents, the first 2 pages reflect on the 25-26 school year, and it's meant to make the funding comprehensible. Questionable perhaps, but when you look at the pie on the left, all the different components, the colored components are federal funding and supplemental funding, local funding, and then the blue is really, it says total LCFF funds, but that's general fund. And then if you break down the big pie on the left to the right, the blue portion, the dark blue portion is considered the LCFF or general fund that would be available in the LCAP, and then the small little slice is the supplemental dollar. And that's really supposed to provide increased and improved services for high needs students. The second page of the budget overview is really to say that this is not a dollar for dollar accounting of the budget. We have a beautiful comprehensive budget book that does a lot of that work. So the column on the left shows all of the funds, all of the revenue streams, and then the blue on the right shows what we talk about in our LCAP. So there's things that are not in there like debt service, some non-instructional staffing, et cetera, and we're just required to show you that not every dollar is included in the LCAP and thinking about 25-26. And of course, the third page is about reflecting on the LCFF supplemental or for the increased and improved services in 24-25. We budgeted $23,575,000, and we came in just under that with our estimated actuals. All children were served. Positions were staffed. We did almost everything we said we were going to do. And the discrepancy really comes down to a slight hiccup in some of the elementary AVID funding. We gave them too much on the budget books, and they had enough. They did everything they needed. And then also we had some high budget estimates on what the staffing would cost in some positions, but all the positions were filled, and we're really proud of that. But this budget overview makes those explanations. We engage many educational partners, starting from the LCAP survey when anyone can participate, all the way through the valued input that we get from our bargaining units. We work with all of our advisories, our schools, our 31 school site councils, and our 22 ELACs provide site level input so we can develop both the school plan and the LCAP. And we do student focus groups. We choose 8 elementaries each year. We work with all of our middle and high schools to get the student voice represented. So we look at many, many voices as we develop our LCAP. In terms of measurement and results, there are some required metrics from the state, things like graduation rate, chronic absenteeism, and then there's additional things we add like Acadience, as you heard earlier, or star rating or star math, not required by the state, but things that we add to try and round out our picture of success. The contributing metrics are designed to, and you'll see them at the very end of the LCAP, when we say we're putting increased and improved services with dollars, what are the metrics that we're using to say, is this working? And then finally, student groups. We need to address all students as well as other student populations, so typically our low income and our English learner students. But a new feature as of last year was any students with dashboard red needed to also be identified so we can be saying how are we making progress for those particular students. Want to point out with the metrics as well, one change that we adjusted this year is looking at some of the metrics we had for our low income students in particular or socioeconomically disadvantaged. And we had some of them that weren't at the same level of the all student target. So for instance, in smarter balanced results, maybe we were aiming for 85% meets or exceeds for all, and our low income was not benchmarked there. We had done it according to historical performance. But we have made that adjustment so that any of our metrics where we're aiming a target for our low income socioeconomically disadvantaged students now meet the all target. So that was one of the adjustments we wanted to make sure that you all knew about. In terms of our actions and services, we created our LCAP with the same philosophy of multi-tiered systems of support. So each of our goals has actions for all students, has actions for some students, and has actions for few students. And the key thing to look at all of these actions is that there's an action number, a title, and then a description, which maps to the tables at the very end for our dollars. And then you'll also see whether things contribute or don't contribute, yes or no. Any of the yeses is LCFF supplemental. So some key investment strategies we want to point out. Of course, we've done the reorganization of the LCAP. So anyone reading through the LCAP will see the explanation in each of the areas. Previously this goal, these metrics were previously that number, so that it's hopefully easy to crosswalk. The early literacy, as you've heard, is something that we're extremely proud of and is a significant investment. And so we want to highlight the people, the programs, the efforts, and the outcomes. In terms of academic innovation, we have recently been given direction to expand the support at the elementary level with our accelerated and advanced learning. So we want to highlight that, as well as our robust CTE pathways that continue to grow and to produce results. Our critical thinking strategies, TK-12, like thinking maps, are some of the highlights in terms of our creating coherence for our students. Our summer programs and our investment in elementary and secondary. The dual immersion program growth, now that we're rolling up to the high school level. Our unified parent communication, we've heard for years about really supporting that effort, and so we're pleased with that progress. And of course, drive around starting yesterday, and you will see the many facilities improvements that this district has invested in. And finally, the increased or improved services. That is at the very end, and it goes through each of the different areas that we invest for the local control funding formula supplemental funding. Just a reminder, Newport-Mesa doesn't get additional funds, but we meet requirements by sequestering some of our general fund to support these efforts. At the very end of our LCAP, you have our planned expenditures for the future, and it is both the kind of the all that we're including in the LCAP, and then the contributing actions tables, where those are the things that we're using our LCFF supplemental dollars on. Some English learner staffing, some classified staffing to support targeted students, early college, high school, AVID, et cetera. And then, of course, we reflect on the prior year on the annual update. So we had budgeted a dollar amount, and then we say what the estimated actual is. And same thing for the contributing actions, so we look at both of those. And then throughout the LCAP, we identify every material difference, and the Orange County Department of Ed double checks on that for us. So we list everything that is a material difference, and we explain, so what happened? And then finally, there's a carryover table. Newsflash, we didn't carry over any money. Finally, you can find our LCAP on the district website. It is given top billing. We have a short version, we have a long version, and anyone interested in any prior LCAP can find it under the second to last option, district plans. Enjoy the reading.
Any questions before we move on?
No, we love her. We love her.
Trustee Anderson?
They're amazing. I mean,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I have to have at least one question.
I did feel like this one was easier to read.
Well, thank you.
And it's so much more narrative at the beginning. So I think particularly we highlighted it a little bit in the early literacy portion, but the first portion where it talks about the elementary early learning, early literacy, and writing, it's just incredible to read about the investment and all of the professional development and the results that have, unsurprisingly for some of us, happened quickly. And it's so exciting to see just that, like, in the data is reflecting all of the time and energy and focus that we're putting into that, which really, funnels into the next decade and life of a student. So that was really exciting to see it led with that and all of the things that we've been investing in. One of the things that I was really interested, and also thank you, for the alignment. I was going to bring up goal 4 and now it's goal 3. So I just wanted to say thank you for making it so clear in adding just really clear descriptions about, particularly for the family and community engagement, what we're doing for each, for all, for some, and for few. I think it was just really helpful. So
thank you.
Overall, just wanted to say thank you.
Trustee Crane?
I'm excited to hear that there's a new element that applies to our advanced and accelerated learners, and that it's going to make the LCAP, and I can't wait to see that grow. So thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Murphy?
Okay, did I miss this somewhere? Did we talk about how many parents responded?
To the survey? We didn't talk about it here, but we talk about it in the next time I come before you in June, where we do the local indicators and we talk about our parent and family engagement. But it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,202.
Just saying.
That sounds like a great number. Was it higher or lower than last year?
It is higher than
It
last
is
year,
higher.
slightly. We're going to do better next year. We're
Well,
going
I
to
forgot.
shorten that thing, and we're going to get people to respond.
I forgot to do it this year, so you're probably down.
I think our unified parent square system will help us with reminders.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I think.
Absolutely.
That'll be great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you so much. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to next or 2 weeks edition. It'll be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I am going to open the public hearing for the Local Control and Accountability Plan at 7:40. Do I have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close it at 7:40. All right, moving on to 20E, report on recommended 2025-26 all funds June budget. Mr. Trader.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you tonight. We want to thank Vanessa, working with Vanessa and special projects. We really have to be like that to make it all coordinate and get it all together and make it all make sense. So greatly appreciate everything she does and partnering with her in that. So let's get started here. I want to recommend to you over 500 pages of pleasure reading material here for your pleasure reading enjoyment. And it has a lot of the detail and is the basis for the presentation tonight. We have a budget mandate and we have to adopt a budget by June 30th. We will come back to you in October with the first interim and January with the second interim. And the way the process works, the governor's released his May revision. By June 15th, they'll hopefully come together and then act on a budget by June 30th. And so with that, let's talk about the state budget. State budget was interesting in that the governor really protected us, or Proposition 98 really protected us in that regard. And so there's a lot of favorable things in that. There's some one-time grant student support and professional development for discretionary block grant. Universal meals is important to us. Expanding learning opportunities is important. And the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. There's some unfavorable things, though, in the budget. And this is a result, the state has a $12 billion deficit, and it's going to snowball, not in a good way, it's going to snowball to $42 billion in 28-29 if there's no correction. So there's a structural problem, the state's going to have to figure that out. But as a result, the governor's put in a cash deferral. And because of that snowballing, there's no money to take that cash deferral away. It's going to get bigger. And that's an issue for us because we have a cash dry period between July and December. And so that hits us particularly hard. So we watch that very carefully. That's a particular concern to us. And then there's a lack of transitional kindergarten funding, which simply by virtue of our students living in our district, they do not get funded for. However, the board has made that a offering to the students who live within our district. And so let's search for the long pole in the tent here as we go through things. So you recall we have a budget study session every year, and that's very, very helpful for staff to help us understand where to go with things. And so we heard in the budget priorities for this next year, the facility maintenance and master plan, to continue with that. And then we're continuing with our safety endeavors. So, we're looking at all the OCIAC recommendations, implementing them, which include cameras and door hardware, bollards, window treatments, alerting systems, and fence screening. And then we're also looking at universal transitional kindergarten, which we're bringing in the next age level of students. And then we're looking at the motivating, encouraging, and engaging academic activities after school program. So that was another important thing the board wanted us to take a look at and move forward on. And then of course, we try to do that with this mindset of, hey, look, let's try to do things. But Dr. Smith is really encouraging about this, about finding ways, different delivery service models to get things done in a most economical way that we can do things. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So now let's look at enrollment. Enrollment's stable. Look at that. We've hit a trough, and now we're going to have just a slight little bump next year, which is good news. And then, though, here's the problem. So if you look here, revenue actually declined in 24-25. And that's something that has not happened in a very, very long time. And that's gonna have an impact on us. In the future, though, we see that revenue again start to move up. But that's going to have a big impact on us, that revenue decline between 23-24 and 24-25. And so part of what and this is one thing that I hope you leave with tonight. If you leave with anything, this is a concern that we have. Most of our revenue comes from property taxes. We take what the auditor controller predicts for property tax revenues. And so at period, they make a estimate at period 1 and period 2. And so when you look here, period 1, we were just under 382 million. And then period 2 came in and we're at 380, and we kind of expect that, right? We kind of expect maybe a little bit of a dip, kind of a minor change. But then coming here at estimated actual, we're looking at a significant drop. This was surprising to us, of about over an $8 million drop. That's an issue. That's telling us that something is going on in our property values, in our market here. And so we're very, very concerned about that, because that gets built into the base. We mark to the auditor controller in terms of our estimates and our budget. And so we're a little concerned about that. And we need to look at and evaluate that. And so let's look at revenue expense alignment. And so here's the revenue line. You can see there, that's a great up and to the right line, except for we get into the 23, 24, 24, 25, and we have a slight decline, and then we move up again, which is fine. But that's not the problem. The problem is our expenditure line. So you can see the expenditure line, red line should always be below the green line, and for the next year or two, we're above that green line. And we have projected that, we have known that because we're doing a lot of one-time things in terms of safety. We're putting in fence screening and alerting systems and camera systems and those things. Those things are very expensive. They're one-time expenditures for the most part. And we have COVID funding that's rolling off. So we plan for that. However, the property tax issue is causing, if you look at that red line, we really have to bend that red line here in at 25, 26, and beginning in 26, 27. So that's going to take some effort, and we're going to work on that as we go throughout the year, and hope to have some solution guidance soon. So with that then, we want to talk a little bit about budget compliance, ending fund balance compliance. So this is something you have not seen before. In our budget book, we describe reserves every which way to Sunday. And yet there's a format that our friends at the Department of Education would like us to use. And so we're going to introduce this format to you. And you'll see this in the budget book later on, but I want you to be able to understand what's happening here. And so what we have to do is we have to describe how far above the state minimum reserve of 3% in terms of dollars. We have to describe that. And I can only surmise that the state recognizes that 3% is wholly inadequate, and so they want to see, like, hey, where are you at in terms of being at an adequate reserve level? And so we describe that. So if you take all of our assigned balances, assigned and unassigned fund balances, that comes to $82.8 million, right? So 3% of that is about 16 million, which leaves a fund balance that requires reasons, right? We want to say, hey, why do we have these reserves above the 3% minimum? That amount is $66.9 million. And those reasons we are there's a number of reasons for that. So number one, we have to manage our cash flow, right? Because we have this cash dry period, and if we have to borrow money, that's like going to the corner check cashing place and cashing a check. It's really super expensive. It's the most expensive credit card you can get. You have to pay the money changers and the attorneys, and oh my goodness, it's very expensive to do that. And so we save a lot of money that way. It's to mitigate some fluctuation in funding. It's to address unexpected costs, and then also to maintain our credit rating. Our credit rating is really, really important. And you have saved the taxpayers in this community millions of dollars by having the credit rating that you do. Our bonds have a AAA credit rating. And so it's really important that we maintain reserves so we can maintain that credit rating that we have. And so as a result, those are the reasons, and you'll see this in the budget book going forward. Let's talk about reserve level history and projection. So you can see here's our reserves from 2010 to 2026 in terms of both dollars on the left-hand side, and then if we look at percent, here's the percent of budget. And so we begin in 2010 with 7.1% reserve level, and we're projected to be at 15.7%. Now that is lower than the 17% that you have given us guidance on, given staff on. 17% is the recommended level by the Governmental Financial Officers Association, and then of course the LAO, the Legislative Analyst Office, has recommended a higher reserve. So we're at recommended. You can see there we peak at 26.6, going down to 15.7, and so with that, you see there the 17% line. That green line. And as we get to some financial activators, Dr. Smith has encouraged us to develop financial activators. These are metrics that when we cross certain thresholds will cause us to evaluate our budget. And so you can see on the left-hand side are the thresholds and the metrics themselves. On the right-hand side are the results. And so the kind of pink reddish boxes are the ones that are in the evaluate column. They're saying, hey, it's kind of like the light on your car, right? You don't want to drive it very long when that light's flashing in your car. And so we're looking at unrestricted general fund change. We're predicting we'll decrease that unrestricted general fund by 3.1 million in 24-25, and then decrease it by 22 million in 25-26. So those are concerns. We need to evaluate, but we need to step back and evaluate that, and we are doing that. And then the other areas, general fund cash flow in terms of a percent of budget. We see there in 25-26, we're at 6.9%. where that's in the evaluate column because it's below 7%. And then total reserves, again, we're below the 17% in 25-26 and 26-27. And we look forward to bringing you some solution guidance at first interim that will provide you some time to kind of think about where guidance that you can provide staff in helping us to get back to a 17% reserve level. And so with that then, I just want to thank the whole business services team for putting the budget book together, and thank you. your expectations are astonishingly high. This has not been the pleasure cruise I signed up for. And yet at the same time, I have always felt that you have expressed that we're in this together. And so I really do appreciate that. I appreciate you. And we recommend a positive certification.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Questions? Or should we just, let's actually go around to open the public hearing. Okay, because you'll be back to talk to us next meeting. Thank you. And more to come, but we appreciate all your help, Jeff. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing for the 2025-2026 All Funds June budget at 7:55. Comments? Public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close at 7:55. Okay, now moving on to discussion action calendar. 21A, approve the selection of M-Class with Dibbles, Edition 8, and M-Class Lectura at Newport-Mesa Unified School District's Reading Difficulty Screening Instrument. Dr. Sir.
Yeah, so we had our report earlier, and you could see the work that we did in regards to piloting the different options that we have as a public school district. And from that, a very strong recommendation came out of that for us to make a recommendation to the board to approve M-Class Dibbles 8 and also M-Class Lectura. So we're hoping that that will happen, and we believe that that is the right tool for us to be able to do the work that we know is critical in regards to supporting early literacy and early reading abilities of our students.
So moved.
Second? Or who has a second? Second, okay. Moved by Trustee Anderson, seconded by Trustee Pearson. Questions or comments?
Thank you very much. It seems
you.
excellent.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Weigand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 21B, approve secondary textbooks for public display. Dr. Torres?
Yes, you have in front of you a series of textbooks for approval tonight that have been on public display. No one has come to view those textbooks, and they're in front of you tonight for new additions.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Moved by Trustee Murphy, seconded by
Trustee Crane.
Trustee Crane. Questions, comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. 21C, approve addition to high school course of study. Dr. Torres?
Yes, tonight you have in front of you a new course. You may remember we've discussed that the state of California now has the alternative diploma pathway for our students who are in very specialized programs in special education. And with that, our students have an opportunity to take an algebra course in this pathway. And so in front of you tonight, you have that course of study that has been co-created with special education and our gen ed folks in secondary education.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Crane, seconded by Trustee Pearson. Questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. 21D, approve the renewal agreement between Orange County District Attorney's Office and Newport-Mesa Unified School District to facilitate OC GRIP Waymaker's case manager component for the 2025-2026 school year. Dr. Torres.
Yes, you have in front of you tonight the renewal agreement for the GRIP program, which is the Gang Reduction Intervention Partnership Program. It has been currently at Pomona Elementary and Whittier, and tonight you have in front of you the opportunity to potentially expand that program to a third elementary site.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Pearson, seconded by trustee Crane. Oh, do you want a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought I moved it.
Questions, comments? Trustee Anderson?
Hi. Yes, I have a lot of questions about this item. When we initially approved it, I believe when it came back to us after we had removed it, I think it was in 2021, it came back because one specific principal really wanted this program. And then it came back for a second school. One of my concerns with this, sorry, we have lots of paperwork from the LCAP and the budget and the little, I need like 3 desks. But one of my concerns overall has been the lack of communication and accountability related to program evaluation, what is actually happening within this program. And so I think one of my concerns, again, I was reminded when I saw the extremely simplistic one-page contract, and it's very vague, is what is currently being offered and what that truly entails, and is it really a benefit? So one of my concerns, particularly given our current environment in the community, is we're currently seeing a lot of immigration action happening in our region. And one of the first sentences on here says, intend to work together towards the mutual goal of providing maximum available assistance for students. It's very vague to me what maximum available assistance means. It's not really detailed in any way. And one of the concerns that I have overall with this is the lack of transparency in what this program is provided. So if you go on the website, it has this great video of someone who is a sheriff mentoring a student, but that's not what is currently being provided on our campuses. And so there's just a lack of clarity. The contract says it's a partnership with Waymakers to offer case management. We already have our own partnership with Waymakers. And so there's a couple of pieces even just within this about one of the deliverables is collect data and monitor outcome measures. We did not receive a lot of data at all. It says collaborate with partners. It's hard to know who is being collaborated with. There was one thing that happened that was requested from the community, and we've been working on it for a couple of years to offer a soccer camp. And there was a 2-day thing that didn't work in collaboration with our city partners. It didn't work in collaboration with our neighborhood partners or nonprofits. There's just a lot of questions for who is actually interacting with our students. One of the deliverables is attending parent intervention meetings. When I finally was able to get information on how many students this was serving, which again was no fault to our staff, but like pulling teeth. So there were only 10 students at one school, and there are 8 at another school, but one moved to the other school. It's unclear to me how we're training our own staff. So this is a teacher-referred program. How are our teachers being trained, and are they supposed to be trained, to identify a 3rd grade student who at some point in his life might be in a gang? I don't really look at a 3rd grade student that I'm interacting with and think, oh, well, this factor came into my mind. I think the student might be in a gang. Particularly with some of the historic situations that have happened, unfortunately, in Costa Mesa, with Costa Mesa literally being the first in the country in 2012 to have ICE in our jails, which has changed now. And obviously that was short-lived, but there's a lot of historic trauma around that. And while this program, I think, has good goals of bringing police officers and different people into the lives of our students, that's not what's happening on campus. So there's one person, from what I've seen, again, it's difficult to get information, one woman who's been trained comes to both of these school sites. The students are taken out of class, the small amount of students, during key instructional time in the morning. So at one school is at 8:30 in the morning, the other school is at 10:30 in the morning during key instructional minutes. We don't know what the outcomes are. There's nothing, I don't know what they're talking about. And when this initial program came into place in the 90s, which some parents still talk about it, they loved it because of the greeter program. We don't need the DA's office to be involved in setting up a parent greeter program. So Whittier, for instance, had a greeter program before we started GRIP again. So while it has expanded, we didn't need it to start the program. We don't really need it to continue. In fact, we have high school students who come back and actually help with greeting in the morning. It's like something that we also have moms that come and do noonday supervisors. It's a totally different climate than it was in the 90s. And some of that is the role of the principal. We don't need the DA to try and coordinate that. One of the other pieces to me that's quite concerning is as we've updated and really invested and focused, before we didn't have our LCAP goal, now 3, of community and family engagement. We added an LCAP item. We have thousands and thousands of dollars that we're investing in community and family engagement that we didn't have in the 90s, that we may not have even had fully when we started this back up at Pomona. And so we now have a school facilitator on site full-time at all of our Title I schools. We have an elementary counselor. One of the other pieces is teachers at Whittier did not know the access that they had to a social worker. The social worker from our district staff, to my understanding, should be the person who's the front line of defense if there's a concern with a teacher and a child. So rather than having that a teacher refer out to an outside entity with no accountability, they have not been sharing data well. I don't know where that data is going. I don't know if that data is protected. I don't know if those addresses are being protected. I don't know if immigration statuses are being shared. I don't know a lot of information. So we've worked so hard to create campuses that are safe. We now have community schools that are working to provide resources to families. We don't need a program that's like this. That I think it has a great vision. The implementation, I think the time has passed. We are already doing a variety of other things. We, again, are one of the only districts in our area who are basic aid. We have the money for the resources. This program is actually not happening in a lot of other districts for some of the reasons that I have mentioned. One of the other pieces too is just the data that we have received is a little lacking to me. So at Whittier, there were 10 students that were participating. There was one parent education meeting. The staff education included an introduction to this program. That's it. The student incentive, literally these are things that community partners and others can and should provide. So personally at Whittier, since I think it was 2012 now, St. Andrews has been their partner. St. Andrews helps with a variety of these things. If there's $50 gift cards that are needed for some families, particularly only 10, we have local community partners that want to help with those needs. So those are a couple of the reasons. I also have some concerns with the actual data that we did get, that while a very simplistic pie chart is better than nothing, the things that are being provided are things that our district is already providing and working towards. Again, when we started this even 2 years ago, we did not have the extensive resources that we currently have. So some of the item that is biggest on this chart is for basic needs, food and clothing. We have resources for that. We're now doing, Second Harvest is coming. We have a lot of resources for that. Community events, having an event to celebrate the greeters is not something that we need the DA's office to be a part of. The family support are the things that we as a district can and should be providing. So then the largest item on here being resource referrals, that's what our school community facilitators have been hired to do. From my understanding, the school facilitators have not been invited into this. They're not participating with it. They're not involved. So we, again, then creates all new different silos. We have, particularly because we need all of those entities to be working together. We need our social workers to be working with our community partners that need to be working with our community school facilitators. When we have an outside program serving only 10 students that are not integrated into a system, I don't think that's a best practice. It looks like there's some things that Waymakers was providing, which I don't know if they do this with our other students who are not part of GRIP, but I think that they're great ideas. There's a youth resiliency survey. I don't know where the students started at the beginning of this. There's a protective factor survey. These would be great for us to be offering overall for our social workers to be doing. These are things that we should be doing. I don't know if we are, and I don't really think that we need GRIP to be doing it. There's no process or understanding to me, again, about the referrals, but apparently they were due March 7th for the next year. One of the things that I also find a little interesting is at least one, but more like 3 of our current city council people have asked questions specifically about how Costa Mesa Police Department is involved and connected. Are we doing community outreach? We've had really strong partnerships at different times. They have not gotten answers as related to this with our students. To me, it makes much more sense, particularly as a program that was set up to be a mentoring program, to work with so many of our students become police explorers in the city. I don't know if there's a program that's like that in Newport.
Yeah, there is.
But so then we have 2 cities that have young students. It would make so much more sense for us to work with our SROs, which again, in the 90s, there were not SROs. We have our own SROs, that it would be great to have them, the police explorers from both cities, the social workers, the school site the school community facilitators all work together with the principal and with Dr. Flores to put together plans around community schools, if we're going to be doing those for schools. But again, Westside Costa Mesa is not the only place where we're having some things pop up. It's part of the problem where this isn't based on data. So the reason that Wilson was added, I don't know why, but Wilson doesn't have this need. And coming to bring a turkey like they did a few years ago, it's not what the community needs. There are community partners that are already meeting those needs. I have a few more things. I really have a lot of concerns about this. I would love to know from staff, because this is something that I think other programs need to, other principals and our program staff need to know, is what is the process for a teacher to refer a student to this? Have they had training in that? One of my other concerns is we have been focusing this entire year with banners and a variety of things around attendance. One of the other parts of this program was supposed to increase attendance. Again, it's redundant. We are already working on that. We don't need the DA's office to help us increase attendance. And so the last piece to it before, because I really feel strongly that it should be based on data and there should be actual requested need for it, is we're changing the format from Pomona to Ray, because Ray is now getting the older elementary. And one of the questions that I asked the principal was, are you having more behavioral issues? Are you having things happen on campuses where students are wearing things or expressing things, or something is getting tagged? No, that's not happening. They've actually had less behavioral issues this year. And again, if it's a behavioral issue, we have staff to help with that. That doesn't mean that a student might potentially join a gang. When our Costa Mesa PD, literally there's a guy who works on their team who knows the few families in our community that are actually struggling with this problem. He knows everything about their families. He goes to their house. He knows them. To me, it makes more sense for us to be partnering and having more communication with him and that team than a program that sounds like it's making an impact, but there's really not a lot of data. And in fact, it creates stigma. It actually breaks one of our board policies that specifically talks about creating programs that can create bias. And where did it go? I have a lot of notes from all of our things that we've been talking about the past day. Just a moment, where did it go? So there's some pieces of our own board policy that when we reintroduced and updated things that talk about how we need to be cautious about how we identify students. My issue with a program that is potentially identifying a child who doesn't know what a gang is, who doesn't have anyone that they know that's in a gang, but is in a program to defer them from being a potential gang member, to me is unacceptable. And to have so little accountability in a one-page contract that basically is carte blanche for maximum available assistance, I just think it's categorically wrong. And I believe that we have the opportunity and the resources to create our own program that would actually be a benefit and a resource for our students and our families. Because the students who need it the most may not have a parent that agrees to be part of this program, but our social worker would be able to help them. Thank you.
Trustee Murphy?
Well, I pretty much agree with everything Ashley has said. I think she's laid out the argument for not continuing with this program quite well. I realize that gang prevention is something that we need to work on in Costa Mesa, given a couple of incidents that have happened recently. So I'm not denying the need for a program like what GRIP is intended to accomplish, but to all of Ashley's points, it doesn't seem like it is. I feel like it would be much better, again, agree with Ashley completely, that if we combined our resources, our current resources that we already have, we could figure out a much better program to address these issues. And I want that. I want that, given what has happened to a couple of my elementary schools, and I know that they need it, and I think we need to figure out a better way to address some of these issues with our students and our families. And some of it is not just, not solely around intervention, but also around trauma and some of the some of the real issues that these families are dealing with that can push them sometimes into situations where they could be involved in gangs. And I think we are at the point where we have all the resources we need, almost all of them, to really identify and work with these families in a much more productive way and much more effective way. So I would agree with Ashley on really all points. So my vote is a no.
Trustee Pearson?
I guess I'm just curious, what are the principals and families? Are we getting complaints from the principals and families and teachers that are involved?
I know the principals that are currently involved in the program and the parents that are involved in the program
I need to
have.
hear.
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I'm trying to focus on you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Have given us positive feedback. And that has come directly from principals to our staff. It's not coming, that feedback is not coming through the GRIP program. That's feedback that we've requested directly from our principals and our families that are participating.
Do you feel like this is saving lives? I mean,
well, we hope every investment we make to support students and families has an impact. And I have taken feedback and have heard, and listened this evening about the lack of data and, information coming from GRIP. But it is an investment we've made, and we have seen, and when I say we have seen, when we've spoken to parents, we've interviewed them, we've spoken with them, they're telling us it had been a positive experience. So, you can weigh that against metrics and data and, impact. So it's not as clean, clean data in a metric set, but it's just qualitative. It's people telling us that they've felt good about the program. And that has been communication directly from families to staff.
And no complaint, we haven't had any complaints?
I have not had any complaints.
Trustee Crane?
Yeah, so I hear my colleagues, and it's the first time that I hear about this being an issue. And if for Trustee Pearson's question, have you heard from the site if there are any issues? Because at this point where we sit, we need to be able to trust our staff, especially those who are on the ground, who are our site leaders, about the efficacy of the program. And since I haven't really heard anything, this is a first. So what I would suggest that we do is that, yes, let's look into the future and try to carve out our own, the Newport-Mesa way, as we always say. At this point, what I don't want is for us to shut this down and then not have anything for the fall. Because we wouldn't have a fallback, because I don't think we can create a program that would be ready to roll by fall. So that's where I'm coming from. I do hear the concerns, and yes, I can see how in the future we can build our own program where our kids and our community is comfortable. It's just it's the first time that I hear that there may be some hesitation towards this program.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. So it was a good question, Trustee Pearson, but the response that was positive that parents were talking about is not what is part of this contract. The things that the parents emphatically shared was they love the greeter program. They feel like the greeters are really valuable. To a fault, I did not see a single one of them that said, I feel like my child is safer on campus. I feel like they have access to a trusted police officer who's connected to the city of Costa Mesa. They responded, this is a good program, but they literally were only, if you look, they only talk about the greeter program. The greeter program is not the intent, a greeter program is not gang intervention. So to me, it's a big difference between what is being provided and what parents are offering feedback about. So one of the concerns too that Trustee Crane brought up is, do we have a program to replace this? Again, this is offering what our staff already is capable, trained, credentialed in. We don't need someone to come and do case management when we have staff to work with 8 students at one school and 10 students at another school. That's what our staff is hired to do. So I actually am concerned because it is the role of our staff to do some of these. And because there is not a connection to our current police officers and building a mentorship program and the things that this program claims to do on its own website, and literally is not giving data to our staff when they ask for it, there's a lot more to it, again, than do the parents like it. The parents think it's just to set up greeters, basically, and they get to know this one police officer from the county. The experience has been positive, but it's not really the whole intent of what will actually benefit students long-term.
I have a couple questions. So what are we doing right now? Well, okay, so with Whittier and Pomona, there was obviously a need for us to bring back the OC grip contract. And why did we bring that back? And what was that need?
Yeah, if you go back just a couple of years, and we had some very unfortunate incidents that occurred in the community that were shared with us as being gang-related. Not necessarily with our youngest youth, right? The smallest kids in the district, but there were some community issues that involved some of our students that were older that had been involved in some gang activity. And so, principals are always looking for tools and resources to support their schools, and the philosophy behind trying to do gang prevention is to try to get students when they're young, right? You want to convince them to be more engaged, to be part of the community, to have those solid relationships when they're little, so that they're not making those poor decisions and choices as they emerge into upper elementary, 6th grade particularly, and above, right? So that's really the intention of that. So that's why we brought it back. We had some pretty serious issues that came up. And I say in the community because, it kind of just lived in the ether out there in that particular portion of town. So those are schools that we identified at that time.
Okay. And then Trustee Anderson talked about Waymakers, that we have Waymakers today. What do we do with Waymakers, if you can explain that?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Waymakers, and they provide resources to families, and particularly like through our SARB process. So they also only work really with a specialized group of families that need to receive targeted services. But we do have a partnership with them, that is correct.
What are some of those services that they provide?
They are connector of resources, again, trying to find, when they meet families like through SARB, and the family comes to this event and says, I need help in medical, I need help in this, that, they are a connector of that, they help them.
So do they provide any gang-related support, gang prevention?
No, not through, not in the same way it's intended for the GRIP program. And the GRIP program for Waymakers is supposed to be specifically identified for that purpose.
Okay. And then what is Costa Mesa PD doing for gang-related prevention today with us?
For our district, with us, or as a department themselves?
With us.
With us, they're not. When I say they're not, they don't have a formal partnership for gang prevention with us. We do have our strong SRO program. We have tremendous officers who work with us. They participate at the campus when we have issues, but they're not leading any professional development or anything around gangs. One of our officers has done some of the partnership presentations with GRIP. And so he has gone in and done the training / parent portion of it.
Okay. And I don't know, but does Costa Mesa PD still have their gang unit?
They do.
They do? Okay.
They do.
How well staffed is that? Do we know?
I'm unaware of their actual staffing ratio of officers to the gang unit, but they don't interact directly with us, in terms of our sites. Everything comes through our SROs.
Okay. And then you were talking about, because what I heard about this program, mostly what I hear is that the principals wanted it, the teachers want it, and the parents want it as well. And I'm not on the campus 100% of the time. So, if they're finding value to it, it seems like something that they want, and then that they want to continue with. And one thing that I hear in the community as kids matriculate to different schools, there is a concern from the community about gangs at those schools as kids go to junior high or high school, whatever. And I do know that there is I do think we need some kind of gang prevention education, targeting education, because, from the teachers at Whittier that I've heard from, they really like the GRIP program because they see their kids from 5th or 6th grade all of a sudden change and they close off and they're not there anymore. And they don't, you can't really get them at that point. So getting these borderline kids, as they say, that, could go either way based on friend groups, they say is really important. And they really like when these GRIP interventionists come in and talk to them about, good choices, or, hey, this older brother's in a gang, but I don't want to join a gang. How can I get through that? So they're actually providing that kind of service. And I really would love to still have that kind of gang-related service or gang prevention service to not only just, help that community, but help all communities as our kids matriculate to all of our campuses. So that's why I value the program. I understand your concerns, Trustee Anderson, about, immigration and that kind of stuff. But, I'm here to prevent awful things happening towards children and other children in our district. And so that's why I find it very valuable.
And just to kind of answer your question, principals are always looking for resources to best support their campus.
Mm-hmm.
And they're experts in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Sometimes gangs is not one of them, right? So they're looking for resources.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about principals wanting resources and wanting a program like this, they're looking for a solution for an issue they have. Sometimes that issue changes year to year. Sometimes it moves around town, but those are the issues and conversations that our principal groups have. If this isn't something that the board supports this evening, we, of course, with staff, will go back to the table and work with our principals and take the feedback we've heard tonight and look at what we can do to create something that would best support principals. Because the goal of tonight and any item that we bring forward, particularly with student services, is to create more safe environments for our students and families. The tools that we choose, we look at options, we bring forward what we think could work. But if it doesn't, and it's not something that has support, then we will go back to the table and we will look at ways to be able to support our principals who are facing some of these challenges.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, again, I think the vision is good. I agree with you. We've had certain situations pop up. They're not just, though, in the west side. We've actually had a lot more recently that is in North Costa Mesa. So one of my concerns with this going forward is it's not actually helping one of our high school communities, one of our entire zones is not being served. And I don't know that this is the program to do it because it's not based on data. It's not, we had 3 incidences and we're working with CMPD and the gang unit. And so this is the school that we're gonna work with. It's just these schools were arbitrarily picked, or a principal thought, oh, I want this. And so, or thought that they were getting a different program they were getting. If it was doing actual intervention work and it was working with our SROs, it's a different story to me. Mm-hmm. But when for every parent responds, I love the greeter program and I think that's so valuable, that's not gang intervention. It's good to have positive parent interaction. And I think that's, I don't know if that got lost in what I shared, maybe I shared too much, but the piece to me that I'm concerned with is when one of the students who needs the most intervention currently at Whittier specifically, the parent wouldn't sign off on it, is not a part of it, and hadn't been served, and the teacher didn't know that there was a social worker available for them. Like, that's a real time in this month situation. So for me to have a program that it just keeps expanding and it's not based on data, it's not based on a targeted need, it to me is a concern. It continues to be a concern though also if other trustees are not even hearing about it and don't know that there's a problem or don't know it's an issue, that again doesn't speak to a program that's communicating with us well, is sharing here are concerns in your community you need to be aware of. You know, you're on the board of a nonprofit that serves West Side schools. You didn't know about this? Like, there's...
I didn't know it was an issue. I knew about the program, of course.
Okay, well, again, there's not that much need if she doesn't know that there's an issue. So, again, I think our staff can meet these needs. I really would like to see our SROs working together with if there's the local gang people. My concern is not that this is not a need overall. I have a problem with this contract tonight for the 3 schools that are on here. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Trustee Murphy?
It's the same for me in terms of I haven't heard from one of my principals that they want this program. So I do have a concern there because I would think I would want to hear from one of them that that's what they want. Even though I absolutely understand there is an issue, but no one has asked me for this program. So, and no principal has talked to me about this program. There's been nothing on my side, even though there is clearly a need. And so my concern is I want a program that actually addresses this need, like in an integrated fashion with all of the supports that we're already funding and that we're already working with. It doesn't actually make sense to me from a programmatic perspective that we're going to have a one-off over here when we have all these other services over here. Like that actually doesn't make much sense. Regardless of what we want the program to do, which I think we all agree, we want gang intervention and we want gang prevention, and we all understand that coming after COVID, Costa Mesa has told us there was a rise in gang activity in the city, and I want to do everything we possibly can to quell that, to bring those numbers down, to bring, the availability of, accessing gang activity in our community down. So there is nothing that I want more than that, but I want a program that actually does that, that really does that. And again, to Ashley's point, there doesn't seem to be a lot of data or information that really backs up that, besides principals who said that they like the program. But I'm a little like, it's 10 kids. Like, how can you really love something that is serving like 10 kids? And how many parents are really saying that they really love it? It's 10 maybe sets of parents, and we're talking about hundreds of kids. And I think the opportunity to address hundreds of kids' needs is better than this. I also am really concerned about the lack of specificity about the data, what kind of data they're accessing, what they're doing with that data, where is it going, what kind of data. I have strong concerns with anything that mentions data that we don't have absolute complete control over.
I'd like to call for the vote.
I would like to actually just read our board policy, because that's the big piece also for me, if I may. And
I'll second.
Anyone can call for a vote.
I'll second it.
Because we already have a motion on the floor, and so we can just do a roll call vote now.
okay, but it's our board policy, so. Well, anyone on their own can read our policy. 0415.
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu?
Please just let the motion drop.
Trustee Murphy?
No.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
No.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
Okay, the motion fails because we don't have four-person. All right, 21E.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening. Coming to the board tonight to request approval for us to move forward to the state for a credential waiver for one of our employees. This employee is going to be teaching driver's education, and as you may recall, there isn't currently a program for teachers to teach driver's ed, so we apply for the waiver. The teacher has agreed that if a program becomes available, that they would enter into that program, but at this time there is not, so we request your support so we can request the waiver.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Crane, seconded by Trustee Pearson. Roll call vote?
Trustee Wiegand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. 21F, approve 2025-2026 Declaration of Need for Fully Qualified Educators. Ms. Olson.
Thank you. This is our annual request for approval for our declaration for fully qualified educators. This document is what we need to submit to the state in order to be able to approve teachers on emergency permits, which would be your CLAD or your B-CLAD. So this usually happens with people coming to us from out of state. And then they have a time certain in order to get that certification. It also provides us to apply for limited assignment permits. So these are permits for our teachers who are already credentialed, but they will be teaching outside of their credential. And again, there's a time frame for that for them to enter into a program. And then it also includes internships. So we submit this to the state, which allows us to continue to employ and our teachers apply for these permits until they have the actual authorization. We have to ensure that there's enough numbers on here, because if we run out of numbers, the spaces, then we have to reapply, which will delay hiring. So we ask that the board approve the declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved by trustee Pearson, seconded by trustee Murphy. Roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand,
Yes.
Trustee Soilu, Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Pearson,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. 21G, approve the amendment for employment of Assistant Superintendent, Chief Human Resources Officer between the Board of Education of the Newport-Mesa Unified School District and Tracy Knibb, dated June 10th, 2025. Dr. Smith.
Yeah, the next two are good news, bad news stories. The bad news is that two of our beloved people are bailing on us. And it brings us to this item tonight. The good news is, we have a reputation in the area for valuing our employees. I think Amy mentioned earlier, watching board meetings and seeing how effectively our district is governed. And so we have a lot of folks interested in working here. These two searches were no exception. In fact, the search firm that we hired to do this work said they had never seen this level of interest in the quality of candidates. They've been doing this a long time. And so Tracy, our first one before you for consideration tonight, is exactly that. She currently serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources for the Orange Unified School District. Before that, she was the Executive Director of Human Resources, middle school principal. She was a middle school assistant principal, program coordinator, classroom teacher. She has been serving as the chief negotiator in all labor relations for multiple years. When asked about her, they said that one of her focuses is aligning HR practices with student success outcomes. That's exactly what we're working towards here in this district. And so I bring before you tonight the contract for Tracy Knibb for Assistant Superintendent, Chief Human Resources.
Okay, regrettably, do we have a motion?
I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it.
Someone has to. I think Leona wants to hang up her hat. Okay. I will, so moved. I mean, seconded.
Second.
Okay, sorry, regretfully, but, we gotta.
No offense.
No offense. All right, roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand,
Yes.
Trustee Soilu, Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Pearson,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Crane.
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. And 21H, another downer, but happy. Approve the agreement for employment of Assistant Superintendent, Chief Business Official between the Board of Education of Newport-Mesa Unified School District and Jeffrey Dixon, dated June 10th, 2025. Dr. Smith.
Yeah, most recently, Jeff has been the acting superintendent of Laguna Beach Unified School District, and by all accounts has done a very nice job of leading the entire district during their transition. Before that, he served as the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. For those folks that don't know, Laguna Unified is a community-funded district like ours. So it demonstrates that he has a deep knowledge of those things like cash flow that Jeff mentioned and the importance of property value. So we really appreciate that as well. But before that, he had a lot of experience that will help with what has been Jeff's portfolio. A lot of experience in facilities. In fact, he led facilities work in a district larger than ours, maintenance, risk management, food services, again, all of the things that we'll be looking for leadership in our district moving forward. And so it's a great pleasure that we bring to you tonight for your consideration someone not only with business, but facilities, food service, risk management, and even superintendent experience.
All right. Do we have a regretfully a motion for this one as well? We would love to have you all here forever, but you have spent your time wisely here, and we appreciate it. More to come with our admiration for you guys, but.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Anderson, seconded by?
Second.
By Trustee Murphy. Roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
All right, motion carries 5-0. 21I, first reading and adoption of modifications to board policy. Dr. Torres.
Yeah, the policy committee met recently, and you have in front of you tonight policy 3210, which is the Irvine Company Endowment, or affectionately known as the TIC Fund. And we just made some clarifying language changes.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Oh, was that Trustee Anderson moved? Trustee Crane seconded?
Second.
All right, roll call vote.
Trustee Weigand?
Yes.
Trustee Soilu? Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Pearson?
Yes.
Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Crane?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. All right, now moving down to 20, we don't have any, okay. Number 23 are informal reports.
I have a comment.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, in your final month, Mr. Trader, thank you for bringing forward this policy for us that we can memorialize it and get it rolling and using this money for educational enhancements and the benefit of our community. And so I just, again, thank you for the ease of working with you and that you continue to bring ideas forward to us and maximize them. So thank you.
All right, informal reports, Dr. Smith.
Yeah, I'll be brief tonight. I want to talk about the grit, determination, and the strength of human spirit that we've seen in the last month here in the district. Had a chance to go to the Estancia baseball section finals, CF finals. They're down 3-1 the entire game, bottom of the seventh. The ace closer for the other team came out of the mound, absolutely throwing heat. Our boys got up there on base too, bloop single, load the bases. Young man hits the ball off the fence, clears the bases. We win a section championship. As everyone said, that was probably the most excitement we'd had the whole game. They never gave up. They could have easily given up, especially with this kid coming out of the mound that, again, was just one of the hardest throwers that we faced. And then I think about all of our graduations throughout the district and the stories that we hear. Certainly we hear some really emotional stories at STEP and at Back Bay, but in all of our graduations, there are young people who struggled over the last 13 years to answer the bell, so to speak, to have the courage to do the work, to complete the work, to walk those fields, those stages, to move those tassels. And they don't do it without the support of families and friends and caregivers. And so to the students, thank you for your courage, grit, and dedication. To the families that support them, thank you for trusting us and for supporting them. And for our employee groups and folks out there, our classified certificated management, that they get up every day committed to making sure that those kids do, in fact, each and every one of them, walk across that stage and across that field. It works, and it was beautiful to see it.
Thank you. Trustee Murphy, you want to start and go down the way?
Well, I'm like already all teary from Jeff and Leona. So and then our emotional conversation about how to prevent gang violence and interactions, which I know we all want. But I agree with you, Dr. Smith. So all of the graduations were amazing and wonderful. Costa Mesa does it fabulously. It was fantastic. Congrats again to all those seniors moving on in their lives. But which I will probably start crying about because it's been that kind of night. So Monte Vista Mustangs, they're oh my God. So their promotion and graduation ceremonies were amazing. So thank you to all the staff at Monte Vista who make that school so special, so welcoming, so warm, such an amazing place for a student to find a place to belong and to feel accepted and to move forward with their lives and make the best that they can out of whatever situation that they're dealing with. And so what comes across in those promotion and graduation ceremonies is certainly, again, grit and strength of these kids to get through what they've been able to get through to get to that day, and obviously the parents and families that are around them and love them. But I'm always blown away with the high caliber of our teachers and our counselors and our staff that pour so much of their hearts and time and energy into helping these kids. So, thank you. And their stories were amazing, and that's also what I'm thinking about and why I'm crying. And also Leanna and Jeff, I'm like, that was just too much.
Well, then I'll keep this very short also. So many wonderful end of the year activities. Congratulations to the class of 2025, your parents, and thank you to the staff and Newport-Mesa for doing such an amazing job. I must have been at 7 or 8 graduations, and each one of them was just as lovely as the other. So what a great job. It's an honor to be part of all of them. The other thing that I just absolutely love going to are the walkthroughs. And those are when our high school students come back and walk through their elementary school, their elementary schools. And it is probably one of my favorite things to be at. It just shows the community. Everybody's in tears there. I'm still crying over it. It shows how great Newport-Mesa is as a community. It also shows, the other thing that I just secretly love is they all come in their caps and gowns, and there's probably 40 kids that come to each one of the elementary schools that come back. And I would say 38 out of the 40 are in their blue CDM gowns, which means they're all staying in our public school system. They're choosing to stay in our public school system instead of going private. And I think that's just a testament to all of you guys and how well you guys do. And the other thing, the other event that I loved was the Unified. I didn't get to be at all of it. I wish I could. We were at another meeting beforehand. I think that this is a great start to inclusion in our schools. I can't wait to see that grow and continue. I'm very excited about that. So thank you.
I just wanted to congratulate the AVID scholars that were here earlier. I had a couple of parents reach out in a variety of other capacities in the past month just to explain the process and the sequencing more as we're expanding it. One parent was a parent that their child was in it at Ensign and then at Newport Harbor and didn't realize that they would have 6 years. They thought they were doing a year or 2 at Ensign and then a year or 2 rather than 4 at Newport Harbor. And so they weren't able to do other electives. So I think just explaining the process for parents is really key into what they're signing up for and what that can look like, I think is really needed before we fully expand things. I wanted to thank Mr. Trader for taking a look at our current bus application and reviewing some of that. I think it's always important to look at things. It's been a decade since we've looked at some of those pieces. So thank you for doing that, particularly as it relates to our students going to Team Eagle. We want as many local families that want to go to be able to have access to that. I also just wanted to ask if we can add to our next budget, perhaps to discuss approving a scope and a budget for the Estancia football team room. So the day that we're done with the theater, we can start with some of those plans. They've been waiting for a really long time in a space that is not up to standard for the rest of the district, and so it would just be great if we could do that as quickly as we can. I was able to attend the T-Winkle Awards Night, which was amazing to see. I think there was over 75 students that got honor roll for 7th and 8th grade. And as many people discover when they attend T-Winkle in Estancia, it's a bit of a hidden gem of an area, which is again why messaging I think is important. And that we follow the policies that we currently have that include things like we need to make sure that the board shall make decisions with deliberate awareness of impediments to learning faced by students of color and or diverse cultural, linguistic, or socioeconomic backgrounds. The board decisions shall not rely on biased or stereotypical assumptions about any particular group of students. So I think it's really important that we follow our own policies when we're thinking about programs. I also was able to attend the promotions for Victoria, Ray, and Whittier due to some very careful parking lot maneuvers. So thank you to those principals. And the Estancia and T-Winkle promotion and graduation at Mesa and Newport Harbor. And it's just great to go as far across our district as possible. Thank you.
Well, June, as we know, is our mission accomplished. Having visited many promotions from elementary, middle school to high school, it's absolutely amazing to hear, feel, and see the love that has been dished out by the staff, the teachers, from custodian to principal and everyone in between, and then also the families supporting all these students. So it's pretty amazing. And the coolest thing, too, is that every site has its own personality and its own culture. However, the common denominator is love of kids, and that is Newport-Mesa. Diverse, yet dishing out a lot of love and care. So June is a good month. And as we head into summer, our job is not done. We get comments like, oh, you're going to have summer off. No, we do a lot of work in summer, a lot. Including our summer school, of course, launching and just being there for all these thousands of families and kids and making sure that they're somewhere safe and getting their needs met and having fun while at it. And of course, we have a very ambitious facilities plan, and I'm very excited to already see all those bins are out there. they're out, the crews out there are all trying to get the job done. So on that note, everyone have a wonderful, I guess we keep going, but school's over for our grads. Congrats, class of 2025.
Yeah, it was a great end of the year. So thank you, everyone that participated in all the graduations. They were so wonderful, so heartwarming. And to our trustees, I feel like you could be a trustee one day, maybe in your retirement, Jeff and Leona, if you want to run. There's always spaces available on your local school board. But yes, thank you for attending some of your last school board graduations. It was great to be there with you guys. But thank you, everyone, for doing all that you do for our students to get us to the finish line. And so I'm going to close this at 8:57. Thank you.